Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into the secrets of the multiverse in Adventure Time, I'd love to know where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical, seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up. Let's begin. Tonight, we're going somewhere special. Somewhere outside of time. A place that isn't quite a room, not quite a planet, not really a dimension either. More like the dream between realities. And in that dream, lounging peacefully on a giant pillow, is one of the most curious beings in the entire multiverse. His name is Prismo. Now, if you've watched Adventure Time, you'll remember Prismo by his laid-back attitude. Always kind of lounging, kind of smirking, kind of sleepy himself, honestly. He's pink, glowing, warm like a neon sign in the dark, like a late-night diner light after a long drive. But don't be fooled by that easygoing charm, because Prismo is no ordinary being. Prismo is a Wishmaster. And not just any Wishmaster. He's the only one in existence. The sole creator and keeper of the multiverse's most dangerous and beautiful power, the granting of wishes that can change entire realities. Let's drift into who Prismo really is. Here's a fun little secret. Prismo isn't really the pink figure you see in that pink, glowing humanoid. That's more like his dream projection. The real Prismo is actually just some random dude sleeping on a cot somewhere in the time room. That projection you see? That's his dream made real. Kind of weird, right? You're talking to his dream self the whole time, while his real physical form snores softly in the background. And that little detail alone already makes him different from pretty much everyone else we meet in Adventure Time. Think about that for a second. Prismo is literally someone's dream, lounging on a pillow in a place that exists outside of cause and effect. Already things are starting to feel a little unreal. But there's more. Prismo doesn't just hang out in the time room, he is the time room. They're connected, like breath and lungs. The time room is the blank slate of the multiverse. A sort of metaphysical crossroads where all possible realities can be accessed or created. When someone makes a wish with Prismo, they don't just change their reality. A whole new reality branches off. It's like, imagine standing on a mountaintop looking at 1,000 winding rivers stretching out in every direction. Each river is a different version of the universe, flowing outward, changing, splitting, merging. And whenever someone makes a wish with Prismo, it's like adding another river to the landscape. But it's not chaotic. It's not messy. It's beautiful, organized, flowing. Prismo makes sure of that. He doesn't just grant wishes, he curates the branching of the cosmos like an artist brushing paint onto an infinite canvas. What's fascinating about Prismo is that he's playful. He likes hanging out with people like Jake, cracking jokes, making pop culture references, but he's also deeply wise. You get the sense that even when he's being silly, he's holding back knowledge that could break someone's brain if he really wanted to. He's not omnipotent. Not quite. But he's close. One of the most important things to know about Prismo is that he has rules. Big cosmic beings don't always have to follow rules. Golb doesn't. The Lich certainly doesn't, but Prismo does. You can't just say, I wish I was rich and expect everything to go well. Wishes have consequences. And more importantly, you can only get one wish if you meet very specific conditions. The classic example? You have to kill Prismo's sleeping mortal form in order to get a wish. And if you do, yeah, you'll get it. But Prismo himself will be gone. Forever. It's a wild setup. Imagine going to a genie and realizing that you'd have to end the genie's life just to get that wish. And yet someone did that. Remember the Lich? Of course he found a way. The Lich manipulated others into killing Prismo's mortal form so that he could make his terrifying wish, the extinction of all life. Let's pause on that thought for a second. Because Prismo's death wasn't just a loss of a fun cosmic friend. It was like tearing a thread out of the fabric of reality itself. Suddenly, all the rivers I mentioned before, they start to shake. The cosmic painting smudges. Things begin to fall apart. And yet, Prismo's story doesn't end there. In one of the most beautiful moments of the show, Jake brings Prismo back by doing something both selfless and surreal. He puts himself to sleep next to Prismo's sleeping mortal form, dreaming the same dream, letting Prismo's projection come back into existence. How's that for beautiful? A friend. Bringing another friend back to life, and not with violence, but with dreams, with rest. Honestly, isn't that kind of the perfect bedtime story vibe? Someone literally dreaming their friend back into being. But don't drift off yet. We've only just begun to peel back the layers of who Prismo really is. Because behind that friendly smile is a being who watches over infinity itself. It's one thing to live in a universe. It's another thing entirely to be responsible for all universes. Prismo stands as a kind of guardian of branching realities, but not like a stern cosmic cop. More like a thoughtful gardener, trimming branches here, watering roots there, watching whole forests of existence grow wild and strange. And yet even with all that responsibility, he's lonely. That's one of the most subtle, gentle truths about Prismo's existence. Think about it. When you're outside of time, when you can grant any wish, when you're literally the architect of branching realities, who do you talk to? Who really understands you? Sure, people visit the time room sometimes. Finn, Jake, the Lich, unfortunately, but most of the time, it's just Prismo, lounging, dreaming, waiting. There's a certain melancholy there. And maybe that's why Prismo is so kind. Because when you're lonely, when you're drifting on the edge of all that is and all that could be, being kind matters more than anything. And yet kindness doesn't mean foolishness. Prismo is careful. Always careful. Wishes can warp reality in dangerous ways, and Prismo knows it better than anyone. Remember the time Finn wished that the Lich never existed? Sounds great, right? A universe without that creeping evil? But that wish created Farmworld, a whole alternate timeline with new dangers, new heartbreaks, new versions of old friends. No wish is ever simple. And in that, Prismo teaches us something kind of profound. The things we want may not always be the things we need. It's gentle wisdom like that, wrapped up in cosmic sci-fi weirdness that makes Adventure Time feel not just like a cartoon, but like a soft, late-night dream where the universe gently whispers in your ear. And that's just the start of Prismo's story. We haven't even gotten to the deeper layers of why the multiverse works the way it does, or how Prismo fits into the web of beings who shape reality itself. But don't worry, we're going there next. Let's drift deeper. So, let's float a little deeper into this idea of Prismo's role in the multiverse. If you think about it, Prismo's job isn't just to grant wishes, it's to guard them, to keep the structure of the multiverse from crumbling under the weight of reckless desires. And that responsibility is heavier than it first seems. Because imagine this every time someone makes a wish. It doesn't erase the old universe. It creates a new one, a fresh timeline, branching off from that exact moment like a fork in the road. Now picture thousands of timelines, splintering like cracks in glass. Only instead of shattering, the glass grows, endlessly expanding outward into more stories, more versions of events, more versions of us. It's a beautiful thought, and also a little overwhelming, isn't it? But for Prismo, it's just another Tuesday. And that's why he doesn't get flustered easily. Hanging out in the time room, sipping cosmic tea, watching universes form like bubbles in a bath. But here's the twist. Even though Prismo has all this power, even though he's lounging in the literal center of infinite realities, he's not the top of the cosmic food chain. Not by a long shot. Above Prismo, there are beings like Golb, forces of chaos and corruption, that don't follow the rules of branching timelines, they break them. Golb is entropy. Golb is noise. And when Golb's influence seeps into timelines, things get corrupted, twisted, unnatural. And yet Prismo stays. He doesn't run, doesn't fight in dramatic cosmic battles. He simply remains, guiding, gently protecting, offering wishes with warnings to those who find their way to his door. That's kind of poetic, really. Prismo is order through choice. Golb is chaos without consent. One builds, the other breaks. Now, you might wonder, why does Prismo even bother? Why care about all these weird little mortals drifting in and out of different timelines? Why help Finn? Why help Jake? I think deep down, it's because Prismo loves stories. He loves watching lives unfold. He's like the ultimate bedtime storyteller, except the stories he listens to are entire universes long. Remember how he was with Jake? They were more than casual acquaintances. They were friends, real, genuine friends, laughing over nonsense, enjoying each other's company. It wasn't about cosmic responsibility in those moments. It was just two beings hanging out, savoring the strange, the funny, the weird. It makes sense when you think about it, when you've seen everything. What matters most are the little connections you make along the way. That's why, when Prismo was killed, the heartbreak wasn't just cosmic, it was personal. Jake felt it. And when Jake helped to bring him back by dreaming alongside his mortal form, it wasn't just saving the multiverse, it was saving a friend. Adventure Time has this way of blending massive cosmic ideas with very soft, very human feelings. And Prismo's story is a perfect example. Wishes and timelines and infinite realities, sure, but also friendship, kindness, loss, hope. Now, let's lean gently into something else that makes Prismo fascinating. Prismo doesn't advertise himself. He's not out there throwing flyers into the wind, shouting, "Hey, come get your reality-bending wishes." No, he's quiet. He waits. Only those who stumble into the right pathways, often by accident, or by desperate searching, find their way to him. It's like he's part of the secret architecture of existence, hidden but essential. The beams behind the walls of the house. And that brings us to another beautiful little truth about him. Even though Prismo has this massive responsibility, he's not perfect. He messes up. He can be careless. He loves fun a little too much sometimes. And that makes him feel, well, oddly relatable for a glowing cosmic entity. He's not some unfeeling god. He's just a guy dreaming, doing his best to keep the whole thing from spiraling into chaos. There's this gentle loneliness that runs through Prismo's character. Think about it. He's surrounded by infinity, but alone. Friends visit, sure, but mostly it's just him, sitting, dreaming, watching universes flicker past like TV channels late at night. And maybe that's why he values connection so deeply. Do you remember that beautiful scene with him and Jake? Lounging together, talking nonsense and laughing. That wasn't just comic relief. It was two beings from completely different worlds, sharing a moment. One infinite, the other mortal, both just enjoying each other's company. There's something quietly powerful about that. Now, let's wander for a moment into why Prismo even has the time room in the first place. Is he its creator, or is he just another caretaker in a long line of cosmic beings? Adventure Time never fully answers that, and honestly, I think that's what makes it so dreamy, so mysterious. Some things are better left slightly out of focus, like a star you can't quite see unless you look at it sideways. What we do know is that Prismo's connection to the time room makes him a central piece of the multiverse's machinery. Without him, the delicate branches of alternate timelines might grow wild, uncontrolled, or maybe collapse entirely. And that makes his death all the more terrifying when it happens. When the Lich manipulates events to get Prismo killed, it's not just one timeline in danger. It's all timelines, all at once. The wish for the extinction of all life isn't a small, contained disaster. It's the unraveling of the entire web of possibility. It's like someone pulling on a loose thread on a sweater, and the whole thing coming apart in your hands. But even then, even with death, decay, and cosmic extinction pressing against the walls of reality, Adventure Time gives us hope. Because Prismo comes back. Because friendship matters. Because even the architects of reality need someone to laugh with on a lonely cosmic pillow sometimes. And I think that's why Prismo resonates so much with people watching this sleepy little show in the middle of the night. He's funny, yes, powerful, absolutely, but he's also familiar. He knows what it's like to be alone with your thoughts, wondering how it's all going to work out. And even in infinite timelines, in endless possible versions of yourself, sometimes what matters most is just one good friend who shows up when you need them most. We're only just beginning to untangle the web of Adventure Time's multiverse, but already you can feel the strange beauty of it, right? Now, let's gently drift further into that glowing space beyond reality, the time room itself. You might be wondering, what actually is this place? Why does it feel so different from the other realms in Adventure Time? The Candy Kingdom, the Nightosphere, even the cosmic owl's domains. The time room isn't just another dimension. It's outside of all dimensions, outside of time, outside of consequence. It's like the silent space between heartbeats, the pause between thoughts. You could almost call it a cosmic waiting room, but that wouldn't quite do it justice. It's not empty, it's potential, endless potential, the possibility of everything, coiled up and glowing softly like a lantern at the edge of existence. And right in the middle of that endless hum of possibilities is Prismo's pillow, his cozy little lounge draped in cosmic comfort, holding him steady while universes branch off in every direction, like ivy growing along an infinite wall. The rules of the time room are where things get really interesting. It's not like walking into a building. It's more like stepping into a concept. When you enter the time room, you're not in space anymore, you're in choice. Every decision, every possible outcome, every what if you've ever thought of, they all exist here as shimmering possibilities. And when a wish is made, it doesn't overwrite the universe. Instead, Prismo carefully plucks out a brand new reality from the sea of potential futures and brings it to life. That's how Farmworld came to be. That's how realities shift and multiply. It's not destructive. It's creative. But it's not playful magic either. It's dangerous. Because every branch creates new problems, new risks, new versions of people with their own lives, their own fears, their own liches. Wishes don't erase suffering, they multiply it. That's why Prismo is so careful. He knows that infinite realities don't mean infinite happiness. They just mean infinite stories, And some of those stories are dark. Do you remember when Finn used a wish to try and erase the Lich from existence? It didn't delete the threat. It just created a whole new timeline where the Lich still found a way to exist as a twisted, almost zombified creature, still clinging to his mission of extinction, like a shadow that refuses to disappear no matter how bright the light gets. It's this delicate cosmic irony. The harder you try to fix things, the more you risk making them worse. That's the heart of the multiverse's design in Adventure Time. Nothing is ever really fixed, just reshaped, redirected, echoed across new variations. And that brings us back to Prismo's loneliness again. Can you imagine what it's like to watch all of those universes play out? To see not just the best possible outcomes, but the worst? He sees heroes rise and fall, kingdoms thrive and crumble, evil triumphing in one branch, kindness prevailing in another. And all the while he's there on his cosmic couch, just watching it all drift by like clouds in a summer sky. I think that's why he clings to friendship so tightly, why he laughs so much with Jake, why he plays along with silly conversations, cracks jokes, makes references to video games and movies. It's not just because he likes fun, it's because fun is necessary when you're standing on the edge of infinite realities that don't always go the way you hope. And here's something else to think about. Why does the time room exist at all? Who built it? Did it always exist? Is Prismo the first Wishmaster? Or just the latest caretaker of something older, stranger, more mysterious? Adventure Time doesn't give us easy answers on that, and honestly, I love that. I love that it stays just out of reach, like a word you almost remember but can't quite say. Some mysteries are sweeter when they stay mysteries. But it does give us glimpses of something else. That Prismo isn't alone in his cosmic responsibilities. There are other beings, other forces, the cosmic owl, the blank-eyed girls, Orgalorg, and of course, Gulb. All of them, in their own strange ways, seem to be part of the machinery of the multiverse, each representing different aspects of existence. Prismo is choice. The cosmic owl is destiny. Gulb is chaos. They all dance around each other, shaping and misshaping the lives of everyone in Ooh and beyond. But while many of those cosmic forces are unknowable, indifferent, or outright destructive, Prismo is kind, and that makes him special. He doesn't have to be kind. He's powerful enough to be cold, detached, purely logical. But instead, he's warm, silly, emotional, relatable. He cares. And maybe that's why, even with all the dangers of wishing, people still come to him. Even though wishes are risky, people still hope. They still dream. Because deep down, we all want to believe that maybe, just maybe, there's a version of reality where things are better, where we're happier, where we're okay. And Prismo, he doesn't laugh at that hope. He doesn't belittle it. He holds it gently, like someone cradling a fragile bird, knowing that even if the outcome is uncertain, the wish itself matters. That's beautiful, isn't it? Even in a show filled with weird talking candy people, vampires, and ancient demons, Adventure Time always circles back to something simple. Hope matters. Prismo's existence reminds us that even if the universe is big and strange and often scary, there's still room for kindness, still room for laughter, still room for friendship, curled up on a cosmic pillow somewhere beyond time. And yet, with all that kindness, with all that softness, the time room remains a dangerous place. Not because of Prismo, but because of the choices that people make in front of him. It's not the Wishmaster who makes wishes go wrong. It's us. That's the real lesson of the multiverse in Adventure Time. Not that magic is dangerous, not that cosmic beings are cruel, but that desire itself is unpredictable. What we wish for may not save us. It may only create more versions of ourselves, struggling with new unintended consequences. It's humbling, isn't it? But somehow, Prismo stays. He remains, watching, waiting, helping where he can, laughing when things get too heavy, comforting those who stumble into his strange little dream, reminding them that they're not alone, even in the weirdest corners of existence. And as we drift deeper into the architecture of the multiverse, one thing becomes clear. Prismo isn't just a character in Adventure Time. He's a feeling. He's the warm light left on when you come home late at night, the steady voice of a friend when you're lost, the soft laughter of someone who understands, even if they can't fix everything for you. And maybe that's enough. So here we are, drifting gently at the edge of everything. We've talked about Prismo, the friendly Wishmaster, lounging in his glowing pillow fort, watching infinite universes unfold like pages in a storybook. We've talked about how each wish made in his time room doesn't erase the world. It creates another one, another shimmering thread woven into the infinite tapestry of possibility. But now, let's think about something a little deeper. Why do people wish at all? What makes someone stand in front of Prismo and risk it all, life, time, existence, for a single whispered desire? It's because people want change. They want different. They want better. And sometimes they just want to escape. Think about the wishes we see in Adventure Time. The Lich wished for the extinction of all life, pure, hungry destruction. Finn wished for the Lich to never exist, pure, innocent hope, but one that still led to new problems. Jake could have wished for anything, but his heart wasn't filled with selfishness. He used his time with Prismo for companionship, for curiosity, for friendship. The way characters wish tells you everything about who they are. And I think that's part of why Prismo exists, not just to grant wishes, but to reveal truth, to hold up a mirror to whoever stands before him and say, all right, let's see what you really want. The scariest thing about making a wish isn't that it might go wrong. It's that it might show you something about yourself you weren't ready to face. That's why Prismo doesn't grant wishes lightly. That's why he's playful, but always cautious. Not because he's afraid of making mistakes, but because he knows that reality is fragile. The strings that hold it together can fray with even the smallest selfish thought. But here's the beautiful thing. Prismo believes in people anyway. Even when things get messy, even when reality cracks and timelines branch off into chaos, even when the worst possible versions of existence come to life, Prismo stays hopeful. Because even infinite universes of chaos are balanced by infinite universes of kindness, of friendship, of people making the right choices, of people wishing not just for themselves, but for others, wishing for healing, for peace, for something gentler. And even though Adventure Time is often goofy, colorful, strange, beneath that surface is something very human. We are all dreamers, standing in front of something bigger than ourselves, hoping that our little wishes can make a difference. And Prismo? He's the friend who doesn't laugh at those wishes. He listens. He makes them real even when they're risky. Even when the person making the wish doesn't fully understand what they're asking for. And he stays with them through it. Even when the multiverse fractures, even when alternate realities spin wildly out of control, even when ancient evils like the Lich creep into every corner of existence, Prismo stays steady. It's kind of comforting, isn't it? knowing that somewhere, floating at the edge of time and possibility, there's someone like that someone who understands how hard it is to know what you really want, and who will sit with you anyway, kindly, patiently, warmly. There's a softness to it all, hiding underneath the wild, cosmic adventure. A softness that says, it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to want things. It's okay to wish for something more. And even if that wish doesn't go the way you hope, there will always be someone out there, maybe not on a glowing cosmic pillow, but maybe in the form of a friend or a quiet late-night moment, or even a little bedtime video like this one reminding you you're not alone in the wanting. Now, let's take one last soft step in this first part of our journey before we wander further into the multiverse itself. What makes Prismo different from beings like the cosmic owl or Golb isn't just that he controls wishes. It's that he cares what happens after. The cosmic owl delivers dreams, visions of the future, but without emotion. Golb tears realities apart with no concern at all. Prismo, though. Prismo hopes for the best. And that's why he's one of the multiverse's secret protectors, not with weapons, not with armies, but with careful thought, with gentle laughter, and with one very important skill, listening. The multiverse in Adventure Time might be vast. It might be terrifying. It might be full of dangers we can't fully imagine. But it's also alive with possibility. And Prismo is the one who helps shape those possibilities into something new, something strange, something beautiful. And that's where we leave him for now, lounging in the time room, watching the branches grow, smiling softly at the chaos, and maybe, just maybe, hoping that somewhere out there, one of those timelines finally gets it right. All right, sleepyheads. Let's drift now into the next chapter of this journey, deeper into the fabric of reality itself and the infinite echoes hiding behind every choice we make. Ready to explore what really happens when a wish comes true? Let's keep going. Let's gently drift deeper now, deeper into the folds of space and possibility, where things don't work the way we expect them to, where up might not mean up, and before doesn't always come before after. We're floating now into the heart of it all, the time room. We've mentioned it before, that strange glowing place where Prismo lounges, dreaming universes into existence like someone idly sketching in a notebook while lying in bed. But now, let's actually sit with it for a while. The time room isn't a place in the way you might think about places. It doesn't have walls. It doesn't really have gravity. You don't walk into it like you'd walk into your kitchen for a midnight snack. No, the time room is more like a concept, a living idea made real. It sits outside of time, but it contains time too, almost like standing on the shore of a great ocean while holding a glass full of that same water. You're both part of it and above it. This is where all possibilities live. All of them. Every branching decision you've ever made. Every version of yourself you've ever imagined. Every what if. Every could be. It's here. And Prismo? He's the only one with the map. But here's the part I love. The time room isn't loud. It's not swirling with cosmic explosions or flashing lights. It's calm. It hums softly, like distant wind chimes on a summer night. Peaceful. Still. The echoes in the time room aren't voices or sounds. They're possibilities. Imagine standing in a vast, endless room, and instead of hearing echoes of your own footsteps, you hear echoes of all the choices you could make, all layering over each other, whispering softly in the background. Go left. Go right. Stay still. Run. Forgive them. Don't forgive them. Tell the truth. Lie. Every version of every choice gently floating around you like shimmering dust in a beam of morning light. And here's the thing. Prismo doesn't create those possibilities. He doesn't invent them. They already exist in potential. He just helps people pick one. Now, that might sound like a lot of responsibility, and it is, but the beauty of the time room is that it doesn't rush you. There's no ticking clock, no pressure, just potential, stretching out forever in every direction. And when someone makes a wish in that room, they're not changing the timeline they came from. They're stepping sideways into another one, like sliding over one seat on a very long couch, sitting somewhere else, somewhere new. And what happens to the old version of that person in the old timeline? It keeps going. It still exists. It doesn't vanish or crumble or disappear in a puff of cosmic smoke. It keeps drifting forward, telling its story, making its choices, branching again and again like the limbs of some ancient tree growing at the center of everything. Let's picture that for a second. Can you see it in your mind? A giant, glowing tree, stretching beyond the sky, past the stars, through layers of reality itself. Each branch, each leaf, each twisting vine that's a timeline, a universe, a version of things. Some of those branches are thick and strong. Some are small and delicate. Some might wither. Some grow wild. But they all keep reaching outward. That's the multiverse. And the time room is like the still clearing at the base of that tree, a quiet center. The eye of the storm where things are calm enough to breathe. And Prismo? He's just hanging out under that tree, watching it grow, handing out choices like a kind gardener, offering you a fresh apple with a little smile that says, "Careful now. You never know what you'll get." It's kind of nice to think about, isn't it? All those versions of you, branching off somewhere in the great beyond. Somewhere right now, maybe another version of you chose something different today. Maybe they moved to a new city. Maybe they said something they were afraid to say. Maybe they didn't. And all of those possibilities hum softly in the infinite echoes of this room. But here's the wild part. You don't even have to wish for those versions to exist. The multiverse branches naturally all the time, like streams splitting off from a river. Wishes? They're more like deliberate jumps, big leaps to somewhere else entirely, a purposeful stepping off. What Prismo offers isn't control over reality, it's choice. Choice. With consequences. Sometimes good, sometimes not. And that's where things start to get tricky, because not everyone who enters the time room understands what they're asking for. You might remember the Lich's terrible wish, the extinction of all life, or Finn's desperate wish that the Lich never existed, which gave birth to Farmworld. These aren't just cosmic footnotes, they're entire universes. Echoes of a moment's decision spiraling off into forever. And those echoes don't stop. One leads to another and another and another, until suddenly you've got infinite versions of reality humming softly, like overlapping songs in the distance. But unlike the echoes in a canyon, these echoes don't fade. They grow louder, more tangled, more strange. Somewhere out there, a version of Finn is still fighting to save his family in the frozen wasteland of Farmworld. Somewhere else, perhaps another version of Jake, never even met Finn. Somewhere, maybe, Ice King never put on that terrible crown. All of it exists right now, layered softly behind the walls of the universe. And here's what makes it beautiful, and a little heartbreaking. Prismo can see them all the versions of his friends, all the possibilities, all the heartbreaks, all the victories, and yet He can only ever sit in that still room, watching them drift by like fireflies in the night. It's peaceful, but it's lonely too, isn't it? And yet, despite that loneliness, Prismo doesn't seem bitter about it. There's something quietly heroic about that, don't you think? To sit outside of everything, to see all the mistakes, all the beautiful moments, all the heartbreak, and still smile anyway. Still crack dumb jokes about sandwiches and video games. Still welcome visitors with warmth and curiosity, not resentment. He's not the king of the multiverse. He's not a god lording over existence. He's more like a cosmic librarian. Not writing the stories, but keeping them organized. Making sure none of them fall off the shelf into nothingness. And here's the thing, he doesn't interfere. Not really. He doesn't reach into people's lives and change things unless they ask for it. Even then, he's hesitant, thoughtful, careful. Because he understands something most of us forget. Choices have ripples. Even the best-intentioned choices can drift outward into places you didn't expect. That's exactly what we see with Finn's wish to erase the Lich. It comes from a good place, pure, heroic, hopeful. But instead of fixing everything, it throws Finn into another universe where new dangers await, where the same old patterns of pain and struggle play out all over again in a different key. That's the strange, bittersweet poetry of the time room. Even when you step sideways into a new version of your life, the echoes follow. Maybe not the same faces, maybe not the same events, but the same patterns, the same challenges, circling around like distant thunder, waiting to roll in again. It's not hopeless, though. If anything, it's, human. The idea that no matter where you go, no matter how far you drift into the branches of the multiverse, you'll still face the same questions. Who do you want to be? What matters to you? Will you fight for something good, or will you let fear decide for you? And Prismo, he's just there to hand you the map, not to tell you where to go. That's what makes the time room feel so dreamlike. It's not just glowing lights and branching realities. It's choice itself. Not in a heavy philosophical way, just in that soft, nighttime way where you lay in bed and think, what if I had done that differently? What if I had said something else? What if... We all visit the time room in our own quiet ways, don't we? Not with cosmic pillows and glowing universes, but in those quiet, drifting thoughts just before sleep. That's why this part of Adventure Time feels so gently personal. It's cosmic, sure, grand, universal, infinite, but it's also just familiar. It's what it feels like to sit with your own possibilities, wondering what could have been. And for Prismo, that's every moment of every day. Watching people make choices, watching them regret, watching them celebrate, watching it all spin outward in delicate spirals of cause and effect. Here's a beautiful little detail you might remember. When Jake visits Prismo, it's not with some great heroic mission. It's mostly just hanging out, talking, laughing, being present with each other. Isn't that something? That in a place where universes are created, what matters most isn't power or magic, or destiny, it's friendship. The smallest thing in the biggest place. And I think that's why Prismo likes Jake so much. Not because Jake is wise or powerful, but because Jake is simple in the best possible way. He's present. He's not tangled up in existential dread or cosmic responsibilities. He's just there, eating pickles, making dumb jokes, enjoying the moment. Prismo probably envies that in a way.
Because while he watches infinite possibilities spiral outward, he doesn't really get to live them. He's outside of life, gently observing, softly dreaming, but never quite in it the way mortals like Finn and Jake are. But still, he's content. Not happy all the time, but content. Watching, guiding, laughing, hoping that maybe, just maybe, somewhere out there in the branches, someone gets it right. And that brings us to one of the softest, most bittersweet parts of the multiverse. No single version of reality is the right one. There's no golden branch, no perfect timeline where everything works out.
There's just versions, echoes, different paths leading to different places, and in each one people try, they fail. They love, they lose, they live. Isn't that oddly comforting? The pressure's off. You don't have to get everything right the first time. Somewhere out in the infinite echoes of the multiverse, there's a version of you who chose differently. And maybe they're happier, or maybe they're struggling too. Either way, you're not alone. And I think that's what Prismo wants us to remember. That even when we feel stuck in our own little timelines, wondering if we missed something important, there are always other possibilities. Not because we can run from mistakes, but because life is big. Bigger than we can imagine, full of branches we can't always see yet. And even though Prismo's job is cosmic, infinite, and terrifyingly large, he still takes the time to hang out, to make dumb jokes, to remind people, don't forget to laugh while you're here. That's a pretty good bedtime lesson, don't you think? Somewhere out there in the time room, Prismo is still watching the branches grow, still sipping tea on that ridiculous cosmic pillow, still waiting to help the next lost soul who stumbles through his glowing doorway, wondering what could have been. And when they arrive, he doesn't judge, he doesn't rush, he just listens, lets them sit with their possibilities, lets them breathe, lets them wonder. Because sometimes what you need isn't a new timeline, just someone to sit with you in the one you already have. And isn't that what we're doing here right now? Sitting in this moment, drifting through thoughts together, calmly wondering about all the beautiful what-ifs of life. Yeah, feels right to me. Let's keep going, sleepyheads. We're not done yet. Let's gently drift now, deeper past the soft glow of the time room, past the branching choices and infinite echoes, and start thinking about where these alternate realities actually come from. I mean, sure, they branch out when people make wishes, but why does that work? What's actually happening when the world splits into a new version of itself? Let's build a picture together. Imagine reality like a huge pond, calm, clear, stretching endlessly in all directions. Every wish, every major decision, it's like tossing a pebble into that pond. Ripples spread outward in rings, soft at first, but growing larger as they reach farther out. Those ripples, that's a new timeline starting to form, a gentle disruption in the stillness of what was. And the thing is, some ripples overlap, some bump into each other, some merge, some fade quietly before they can grow too big, and some ripple out into full-blown alternate realities, entire worlds where history itself is different. All because someone made a different choice in a glowing room beyond time. But here's where it gets more mysterious. The multiverse doesn't just grow outward forever. It folds over itself sometimes, like layers of fabric. That's why you get strange events in Adventure Time where realities seem to brush up against each other, causing odd overlaps or strange echoes across timelines. Remember Farmworld? That wasn't just a separate timeline. It was a reflection of the original one, twisted by a single wish, but still holding pieces of the reality we knew. The Ice King's crown, Simon's story, the underlying struggle of good and evil all still there, but reshaped, like a familiar song being played in a minor key. That's what makes the concept of the multiverse in Adventure Time so personal. It's not just a pile of random what-ifs. It's connected to who these characters are at their core. The echoes aren't random noise, they're reflections of the choices that define us. And that brings us to another beautiful little truth hiding underneath the cosmic weirdness. You can't wish yourself away from who you really are. Even when Finn tried to erase the Lich by wishing for his non-existence, the echoes of that danger still found a way into the new timeline. The same patterns of conflict, the same darkness, just wearing a new mask. Why? Because no matter how much we want to jump into a new version of reality, we bring ourselves with us. Our hopes, our fears, our flaws, our love. Isn't that kind of honest? Even infinite timelines can't erase who we really are underneath all the layers of what if. And it's the same for Prismo. Even though he's surrounded by infinite choices, surrounded by endless versions of everything, he's still Prismo. Still the silly, sleepy cosmic being making dumb jokes, offering careful warnings, hoping for the best in everyone who finds him. There's something really beautiful about that even at the edges of existence, in the most cosmic places imaginable, personality still matters. Humor matters. Friendship matters. Now, let's go a little deeper into the echoes themselves. If you listen closely in the time room, not with your ears, but with your imagination, you can almost hear them. Not words, not clear voices, but emotional echoes, feelings drifting past like gentle radio waves. Joy, regret, hope, fear, love. It's not sound, it's memory. It's possibility. Each branch of reality hums softly with the feelings of the people inside it. And for Prismo, those echoes are like background music to his eternal lounge session. He can sit with a cup of cosmic tea, feet up on nothing, feeling those soft ripples of emotion drifting by like summer clouds, not overwhelmed by them, just present with them. And here's something gentle and strange. Not all of those echoes come from wishes. Some come from natural choices people make. The multiverse isn't a perfect machine with clear gears and levers. It's organic, messy, alive, growing not just from cosmic events, but from everyday decisions too. Do I go left or right today? Do I tell someone how I feel or keep it to myself? Do I step forward into something scary or stay safe where I am? Every little moment hums out into the pond, making tiny ripples that sometimes drift into whole new worlds. It makes you think, doesn't it? How close we are to creating whole new timelines without even knowing it. How every quiet moment we don't notice might be echoed somewhere, softly, gently, far beyond the stars. And for every dark branch, every version, where something goes wrong, or someone chooses selfishness, or danger creeps back into the story, there's another branch where something beautiful happens. Where someone chooses kindness, where someone forgives instead of staying angry, where someone reaches out a hand when they could have stayed silent. That's the hope at the center of all this cosmic weirdness. Not that we'll get everything right, but that we'll keep trying. That somewhere, in the infinite branches of the multiverse, someone makes the right call when it matters most. And I think that's why the echoes matter so much in Adventure Time. They're not just plot devices. They're emotional fingerprints. Traces of everyone's hopes and fears drifting softly behind the glow of the visible world. Prismo knows this. That's why he's careful with wishes. That's why he doesn't just hand out reality-shattering choices like party favors. He understands that every wish is like tossing a new pebble into the pond, and you never really know how far those ripples will reach. But still, he lets people wish. Because deep down, even though he's seen it go wrong, He also knows that sometimes it goes right. That's the beauty of infinite echoes. And that's really what makes Adventure Time's take on the multiverse feel different from other shows or stories that deal with parallel worlds. It's not just about cool alternate versions of characters. It's about emotion, about the feelings we leave behind with every choice we make. Every echo in the time room is like a soft imprint of someone's heart, gently vibrating out into the endless fabric of reality. It's delicate, it's fragile, and yet it's infinite. And think about how strange that is, that something as powerful as the entire multiverse is shaped not by warlords or tyrants, but by tiny personal choices, by love, by anger, by curiosity, by hope. It's not big battles that shape the infinite branches. It's little moments, small words, quick decisions. Do I trust this person? Do I help them or not? Do I believe in myself or do I give up? And here's something beautiful about Prismo's world. Despite seeing it all, the good, the bad, the absolutely heartbreaking, he still hopes for better. He still stays kind, still offers help, still listens when people wander into his glowing world of possibilities. Because at the end of the day, that's what the multiverse is. It's listening. It's possibility. It's the idea that no matter how stuck we might feel in this version of our lives, somewhere gently shimmering behind the veil of the ordinary, there's more versions of us, more tries, more beginnings, more endings, more chances. The echoes of the time room remind us that life is never just one thing. Even if we feel like we've messed up, like we've chosen wrong, like we're stuck, there are always branches still growing somewhere beyond what we can see. Maybe not with glowing cosmic pillows or floating tea kettles, but in the quiet spaces of what might still come next. It makes the whole concept of regret feel softer, doesn't it? Regret is just an echo, not a punishment. Not something to carry like a heavy stone, but a soft ripple behind you, gently reminding you that there are other ways forward. And Prismo? He's just the quiet friend sitting with you in those moments, not fixing everything, not promising perfection, but keeping you company while you figure it out. And maybe that's why the time room isn't filled with noise or color or flashing lights. It's filled with room, space to think, space to wonder, space to imagine things differently. Isn't that what we do at bedtime too? Lying there in the dark, thinking about choices we made, about people we miss, about things we wish we could change, about hopes we're too nervous to say out loud. In a way, we all build our own little time rooms in our minds when we drift off to sleep. And maybe that's why Adventure Time speaks to something so deep in us, even when it's full of candy people and ice wizards. Beneath all the silliness, there's this soft, glowing thread of longing for something more, something better, something kinder. And the show doesn't judge us for that. It doesn't say, you shouldn't want things to be different. Instead, it gently reminds us, through Prismo's smile, through the echoes of the multiverse, it's okay to wonder. It's okay to hope. It's okay to wish. Even if those wishes don't work out perfectly, they're still yours. They still matter. They're still part of the endless tapestry being woven behind the surface of things. So, as we sit here together, drifting in the soft little universe we've built between us, just remember the time room isn't somewhere far away. It's not just some glowing room in a cartoon. It's here too, in the soft, wondering spaces of your own thoughts, in your own quiet hopes, in the choices you'll make tomorrow and the ones you've already made. And maybe that's the secret of the multiverse in Adventure Time. It's not just about other worlds. It's about possibility. About holding gently to the truth that even when life feels small or stuck or confusing, there's always another branch. Somewhere a new echo is just beginning to hum. Somewhere another version of you is finding their way, just like you are now. And just like Prismo does with every visitor to his glowing infinite room, I'm here with you. No pressure, no rush, just keeping you company while we drift together through these echoes of what might be. All right, sleepyheads, take another deep breath with me. Stretch your fingers. Pull that blanket a little closer. We've drifted through the quiet heart of the multiverse, but there's more waiting for us ahead. Have you ever wondered, where did all of this begin? Where did the multiverse itself come from? Who planted that first seed? Who cast the first ripple across the calm pond of existence? Tonight, we're going to explore that question together. Not with loud explosions or tangled sci-fi talk, but with soft footsteps, curious wonder, and that same bedtime calm that makes everything feel a little more dreamlike. So let's start here. The Adventure Time multiverse isn't like other multiverses you might have seen in shows or movies. It's not just a stack of parallel worlds sitting neatly on a cosmic shelf. It's messy, organic, more like a wild garden than a library. And that garden didn't start with Prismo. It started with time. In Adventure Time lore, time itself is alive. It's not just a straight line. It's bending, looping, folding in on itself. And right in the heart of that strange living time is the time room. But how did that room come to be? We don't get a clear origin story in the show, and honestly, I love that. It leaves room for wondering. But there are clues sprinkled throughout the episodes, like soft breadcrumbs leading us through the forest of the show's cosmic mythology. One of those breadcrumbs is Prismo himself. Prismo isn't just some random cosmic being hanging around granting wishes like a genie in a bottle. He's a manifestation of a dream, literally. Prismo's existence is the dream of a sleeping old man, somewhere in another reality, slumbering gently while his dream self creates and manages the infinite timelines. Pause on that for a second. How beautifully weird is that? The entire multiverse, all of these branches, all of these timelines, all of these echoes, all of them managed by the dream of a sleeping being. That means the very machinery of reality is born from dreaming. Soft, quiet, personal. Dreams created the multiverse. And isn't that kind of comforting? That even in this chaotic swirl of possibilities, it all started with something as gentle and strange as a dream. But this also raises an even bigger, more mind-bending question. If Prismo is a dream, what happens if the dreamer wakes up? And we do see that. There's an episode where the sleeping body of Prismo's dreamer is killed, and with it, Prismo disappears, just gone. Like a dream fading the moment your alarm clock goes off, and with Prismo gone, the gentle control over branching timelines is lost too, and the multiverse threatens to spin out of control. That's why the multiverse is fragile. Not because it's weak, but because it's alive. Born from imagination. Born from something that could change at any moment. Let's sit with that idea for a second. The multiverse isn't held together by cold machines or logical formulas. It's held together by dreams, and not even the structured, organized kind of dreams. The sleepy, loose, softly glowing kind of dreams you have late at night, when your mind wanders to strange places. That makes Adventure Time's multiverse feel personal. It's not distant or sterile, it's human. And that means it's vulnerable too. And speaking of vulnerability, remember the Lich, that ancient, pure manifestation of destruction? His entire existence is like the dark, infected part of the multiverse. If the multiverse is a dream of potential, the Lich is the nightmare hiding underneath that dream, a ripple that tries to end the dreaming, to bring things to a hard, final stop. You can think of the Lich as the opposite of Prismo. Prismo is potential, hope, new beginnings. The Lich is finality, extinction, silence. And the two forces sit together side by side like a dream with a lurking shadow in the corner. They both exist because the multiverse itself contains everything. Good, bad, hopeful, hopeless, all drifting in the same endless sea of possibility. But what about the beginning of it all? If the multiverse is born from dreaming, then whose dream came first? Did the universe always have these infinite branches, or did something create the very concept of infinite choice? The truth is, Adventure Time doesn't say for sure, but here's a thought that feels right to me. Maybe the multiverse wasn't created. Maybe it was always becoming. Not a single event, but a constant unfolding, a gentle, ongoing blooming of possibilities, like a flower that never stops opening, petal by petal, moment by moment. Time itself isn't a line in this world. It's a garden, growing, twisting, looping around itself. And at the center of that garden sits the time room, not as a throne, but as a clearing, a quiet spot in the wildness, a place to stop and breathe, to think about what comes next. It's not that someone built the multiverse, it's that it keeps unfolding because choices keep being made, because people wish, because people hope, because people dream. And that's the secret origin of alternate universes in Adventure Time. It wasn't an explosion. It wasn't a laboratory experiment gone wrong. It wasn't some ancient god snapping their fingers. It was us. It was choice. It was wonder. It was dreaming. So, if the multiverse was born not from machinery or formulas, but from dreaming, from imagination, from choice, then that brings us to something even stranger, and a little bit beautiful too. We are all part of that process. Every choice we make, every little moment of uncertainty, every little dream we carry around in the back of our minds is like a tiny contribution to that great blooming garden of timelines. And that makes sense, doesn't it? Adventure Time, for all its wild adventures and candy kingdoms and magical dogs, has always been about growing up, about making decisions, about not always knowing what the right thing is. Sometimes things go beautifully. Sometimes they go terribly. But the journey is the point. The multiverse is the shape of that journey, drawn out in shimmering lines of what might be, what could have been, and what might still come next. But it gets even more interesting when you start thinking about who knows about this. Prismo understands. The cosmic owl knows parts of it. He deals with dreams, too, but his dreams are omens, fate, warnings. Prismo's dreams are creative. They're playful. They birth things. Then you have beings like Golb. Golb doesn't create universes. Golb destroys them, devours them. Where Prismo is the soft hum of a dream just before waking, Golb is that sharp jolt, the nightmare that pulls you into sudden awareness, cold sweat, confusion. Prismo brings potential. Golb brings chaos. So now we have this balance: creation, destruction, and choice. Prismo dreams possibilities into being. Golb tears them apart. And all the characters, Finn, Jake, Simon, Betty, they live in between. They make the choices, they create the echoes. That's why Adventure Time never tells a clean, straight story about heroes and villains. It's not really about good versus evil in a simple way. It's about becoming, about trying, about facing the unknown and stepping forward anyway. Alternate universes are just the physical shape of trying again. And that's why we get Farmworld Finn. That's why we get Ice Finn. That's why we see endless versions of characters we thought we knew, wearing different clothes, making different mistakes, learning new lessons. And none of them are right or wrong. They're just branches. Different paths through the same wild, cosmic forest. It's kind of like reading your favorite book over and over, but each time you read it, you imagine one little part going differently. What if this character didn't make that mistake? What if they said the thing they really meant to say? You're still reading the same story, but each reading creates a slightly new one in your head. That's what the multiverse is. But remember, it's messy. It's not carefully labeled folders in a cosmic filing cabinet. It's a tangled, overgrown garden full of strange, unexpected beauty, and sometimes danger. And like any garden, some things flourish, some things die. Some alternate universes in Adventure Time drift off into obscurity. Some fizzle, some collapse on themselves, some echo forever. And that brings us to the beautiful, bittersweet part of it all. Not every branch gets a happy ending, but every branch matters. Even the sad ones, even the broken ones, even the ones where our favorite characters struggle or fail. They all add shape to the great, infinite whole. And isn't that life, too? Not every chapter in our own story is happy. Not every decision we make leads somewhere wonderful. Sometimes we look back at our own choices and think, I wish I could step into a different branch of my life. I wish I could have gone that way instead. But Adventure Time quietly reminds us through all this weird cosmic dreaming that there's still beauty in the trying, that even the sad branches help build the shape of who we are. Even when things go wrong, the branches keep growing. And that's what makes Prismo's role so soft and important. He's not there to judge the branches. He's not pruning the garden. He's just there to help you see them, to let you know that other versions exist, and that it's okay to wonder about them. It's okay to wish. It's okay to want another chance. But it's also okay to stay here in this timeline, with these choices, with this you, right now breathing, resting, dreaming gently of what could be next. Now let's step into the softer layers of this multiverse's origin, not just how alternate universes exist, but how they reflect who we are. Because that's the thing about dreams. They're not random. They're made of you. Your fears, your hopes, your regrets, your imagination. Every branch of the multiverse, whether it's the bright, sunny Candy Kingdom or the dark, frozen farm world, is a little echo of what's already inside us. What if I lost someone I loved? What if I made a better choice? What if I had the strength to change things? It's all just you dreaming through the fabric of the cosmos. So in a way, the multiverse isn't really out there. It's in here, too. Sitting gently behind your everyday thoughts, humming softly like a quiet tune you can't quite hear fully, but you know it's there. And that brings us to something wonderful. Even though we can't jump through timelines like Finn did, we can make small changes here, in our world, in this timeline. Every kindness you give, every truth you tell, every small, brave thing you do, that's a branch. That's a ripple. That's your multiverse blooming outward from right here, right now. Isn't that kind of magical? You don't need glowing cosmic portals. You don't need ancient magical crowns. You don't even need Prismo, really. You just need choice and time. And a little bit of hope. So now that we've gently wandered through how alternate universes come, from dreams, choices, and imagination, let's explore something even stranger. What happens when those universes touch each other? Because here's the thing in Adventure Time, alternate universes aren't always perfectly separated. They don't sit neatly in rows, politely ignoring each other. Sometimes they leak. They brush up against each other, and sometimes they collide. Think about it like this. Remember that pond we talked about earlier with ripples spreading out from thrown pebbles? Now imagine two pebbles tossed in from different directions. Sooner or later, the ripples meet. Sometimes they pass through each other, leaving soft patterns of interference on the surface. Sometimes the waves rise up higher, clashing, curling, breaking apart before smoothing again. That's what happens when alternate universes interact. And in Adventure Time, we see these interactions in subtle ways. Farmworld, for instance, was born from Finn's wish, but the existence of that alternate world didn't mean the original timeline ended. They both kept going, side by side, rippling outward. But the really interesting part is what happens at the edges. At the edges of these universes, things get weird. Boundaries blur, logic wobbles. We see versions of familiar things slightly out of sync. Maybe something feels familiar but off, like looking into a funhouse mirror, recognizable, but distorted. And sometimes, like with Farmworld Finn or the Ice Crown itself, artifacts drift between timelines. The crown itself is like a cosmic virus. Its presence infects whichever timeline it exists in, bringing madness, magic, and that eerie, cold hum of inevitable tragedy. That's why the Ice Crown feels bigger than just a magical item. It's not just powerful, it's multiversal. It's connected to multiple branches of reality at once, and wherever it goes, it brings echoes of other worlds with it. Memories that don't belong, fates that don't align, sadness that lingers in the bones of reality itself. In fact, think about Simon, the human being trapped beneath the weight of the Ice King. He's a living echo of the old world, a fragment of the universe before magic took over. Simon is like a branch that refuses to fully break off, stubbornly clinging to the tree even as new branches bloom and twist around him. He's proof that alternate universes aren't always neat, closed-off stories. Sometimes they bleed together. Sometimes old timelines haunt new ones. But not all of that bleeding is bad. Sometimes the connections between alternate realities are where the most beautiful parts of the story happen. Like when Finn meets Farmworld Finn, two versions of the same soul, standing face to face across the soft, glowing curtain of possibility. There's no hatred there, no jealousy, just curiosity, wonder, the quiet, soft shock of meeting another you and realizing that they've fought different battles, carried different burdens, loved different people, but at the core, they're still you. There's something deeply human about that, don't you think? It's like meeting your past self in a dream or imagining who you could become if things had gone just a little differently. It's not threatening, it's tender. It's sad sometimes, but it's also full of hope. If one version of you can survive incredible loss and still stand strong, maybe this version of you can too. And Adventure Time, for all its wild cosmic world building, keeps bringing us back to that central truth. The multiverse isn't about superheroes punching each other across timelines. It's about a recognition, seeing yourself in someone else, seeing another path you could have taken, and gently understanding that both are real, both are meaningful, both deserve compassion. Now, of course, sometimes things do go wrong. Sometimes, when alternate universes brush up against each other, chaos spills out. Memories get confused. Beings like Golb slip through the cracks, devouring the delicate balance between timelines. Golb is like a cosmic black hole in this multiversal garden, a force of unmaking, threatening to pull all those beautiful, tangled threads of possibility into a single, crushing silence. And yet, even when Golb arrives, what saves the day isn't power or magic or punching harder. It's love. It's music. It's that small, fragile thread of hope humming gently underneath all the chaos. Just like dreams create alternate realities, hope is what protects them, keeps them alive, keeps them growing. So as we drift deeper into this cosmic garden together, remember, alternate universes aren't random. They're reflections of longing, of choices, of unfinished stories. They're soft echoes of moments we all feel. What if I'd said that thing I was afraid to say? What if I'd stood up when I wanted to hide? What if I had one more chance to make it right? And the multiverse says softly back, you do. Somewhere you do. And right here, you can still try. Isn't that a kind thought to hold before sleep? It doesn't mean every branch will be happy. It doesn't mean we won't make mistakes. But it does mean that trying matters, that dreaming matters, that you matter. And now, as we keep floating gently through the origin of these alternate worlds, we're about to step into some of the most mysterious parts of it all. Not just where the universes came from, but what connects them, what weaves them together, and what dangers and wonders hide in those soft folds between timelines. We're not quite done yet, sleepyheads. There's still more to gently explore. So take another breath. Let your shoulders sink a little deeper into your blanket. And stay with me as we drift onward together. And now, as we slowly make our way to the heart of this cosmic garden, let's talk about one of the most mysterious, lingering questions of all. Why are there alternate universes at all? Why should reality unfold this way? Why should choices give birth to entire new worlds instead of just affecting the one we're in? It's one of those questions where the answer doesn't fully come from logic, but from storytelling itself. Because the truth is, alternate universes don't just exist to create more adventures or to show off cool alternate versions of characters. They exist to remind us of something we forget all too easily. We could have been different. Not in a shameful way, not in a judgmental way, just gently. We could have spoken softer when we were angry. We could have stood up for ourselves when we were afraid. We could have taken the road that felt scary instead of staying in our comfort zone. And because we carry those feelings around, those soft, unspoken what-ifs, we dream of other branches. Not because we hate who we are now, but because we wonder. And wondering is human. Wondering means we care. Adventure Time's multiverse is built on that gentle kind of wondering. Not a hunger for power or perfection, but a soft curiosity about how else it could have gone. Even when wishes go wrong, like Finn's wish about the Lich, the point of the story isn't be careful what you wish for in a cold, moralizing way. The point is, even when things don't go the way we hoped, we're still here. We still have choices. And those choices still matter. The characters don't give up just because one version of the story broke apart. They keep moving forward. They try again. They reach for each other. Even when they're lost in strange timelines, even when things feel hopeless, that spark of trying again keeps glowing softly underneath it all. And isn't that what growing up feels like? Making a choice, watching it fall apart, and feeling embarrassed or scared, and then slowly, gently, trying again. Each choice is like a branch, not always clean, not always perfect, but part of something bigger, part of becoming. That's why I love how Adventure Time handles the origin of alternate universes. It's not flashy. It's not explained with complicated diagrams or scientific formulas. It's emotional. It's about what's inside the characters, not just what's around them. And that means the multiverse isn't really about power. It's about healing, about getting another chance, about forgiveness, about realizing that no single moment defines you forever. There's always another step, another try, another path growing softly outward from the place you're standing. Even when Simon was buried under the madness of the crown, even when Finn felt like he'd ruined everything by making the wrong wish, even when entire timelines broke apart, there was still hope. Not perfect hope. Not shiny, golden, movie-style hope. Just small, tired, real hope. The kind you feel when you're not sure you can go on, but you take one more breath anyway. And at the heart of all of it is dreaming. Dreaming is how the multiverse began. And dreaming is how it keeps going. Even Prismo himself, the being who helps guide all these possibilities, is a dream, which means the guide of the multiverse isn't some distant, cold architect. He's a soft, sleepy thought, a being born from someone's imagination, still smiling, still joking, still hoping, even when things get strange or sad. That's why the multiverse isn't frightening in Adventure Time. Even though it's big and strange and mysterious, it's also kind. It's patient. It understands that mistakes are part of the process. That's why Prismo never rushes people. He lets them sit. He lets them wonder. He lets them breathe. And right now, here with me, that's what we're doing too. Breathing together. Sitting gently with the wonder of it all. Letting the strangeness of infinite possibilities feel soft instead of scary. Because the truth is, sleepyhead, you're already part of this. Every little hope you carry, every little dream you drift into as you fall asleep, is another tiny echo in that vast, cosmic garden of possibility. You don't have to build a new universe to matter. You already do. And even though we can't jump into glowing portals or meet other versions of ourselves in real life, we can remember that each new day is its own kind of alternate universe. Every decision you make tomorrow, what you say, how you listen, who you forgive will shape the next version of your own little timeline. Quietly, softly, meaningfully. And if that's not magic, I don't know what is. So as we gently close this part of our journey, drifting past the origins of the multiverse and into the heart of infinite choices, just know, the story's still being written by you, by me, by all of us, in all our gentle, messy, hopeful ways. Now we're slipping into one of the most haunting and beautiful branches in the entire Adventure Time multiverse. A version of the story that only exists because of a single wish, one moment, one longing, that echoed out and grew into a whole new life. We're stepping into Farmworld, a place where Finn still exists, sort of, where the world looks familiar, but also completely different, where adventure still calls, but its voice is colder, rougher, quieter. Now let's go back to where it all began. It started with a wish. In the Lich, Season 4's finale, Finn and Jake pursue their ancient enemy into the time room. There, standing before Prismo, Finn is given the power to make one wish. One true cosmic wish that will ripple across the fabric of reality. And what does he choose? He wishes that the Lich never existed. It's a simple wish rooted in the desperate hope of undoing something terrible. But that one sentence, it doesn't just rewrite a moment. it rewrites everything. It gives birth to a new branch of reality, one that exists completely apart from the world we knew, a world without the Lich, and by extension, without the apocalypse he caused, without the madness of magic, without Simon putting on the crown to save young Marceline, without the Candy Kingdom, without Ooh. This is Farmworld, and in it, we find a very different Finn. Not a hero, not a legend, not even a knight, just a kid. A young man living on a snowy mountain with his family. His mother's alive. He's never met Jake. There's no magic in his bones. No legacy on his shoulders. Just a quiet, hard life in the cold, tending livestock and protecting his family from bandits. It's peaceful in a way, but also heavy. Because even though this Finn never lived through the chaos we saw in the original timeline, he's still shaped by struggle, just in a different form. His battles aren't with wizards and monsters, they're with hunger, poverty, and the weight of responsibility. This Finn still has that spark of courage, you can feel it under the surface, but it's buried, hardened, like ice around a warm heart that hasn't been given a reason to melt yet. And that's the most fascinating thing about Farmworld Finn. He isn't just a what-if, he's real. He's a full version of Finn, living a full life, shaped by different pain, different love, different fears. He's what happens when you strip away the world of Ooh, the magic, the mythology, and see who Finn might have been if he'd just grown up human. But of course, reality is never that simple. Because even though the Lich never existed in this world, the Ice Crown does. And in Adventure Time, the Ice Crown is more than just a cursed object. It's a constant, a fixed point. Like gravity, like the stars, it exists. No matter what timeline it's in, you can erase the Lich, but the crown finds its way. In Farmworld, the crown is buried, forgotten, a relic of a reality that no longer happened. But when Farmworld Finn uncovers it, not knowing what it truly is, everything begins to spiral. At first it's subtle, and the pull of the crown is quiet. But soon, it begins to change him. Not just his appearance, though. Yes, we see the familiar pale skin, the glowing blue eyes, the jagged icy beard beginning to form. No, what really changes is his mind. Farmworld Finn, the protector, the brother, the quiet survivor, starts to lose himself. He begins to forget why he's doing what he's doing. His thoughts twist. His reality bends. His intentions freeze into something colder, crueler, less human. And just like that, this alternate version of Finn starts becoming something horrifyingly familiar. He starts becoming Ice Finn. It's subtle at first, tragic even, because unlike Simon, who put on the crown to save a child, Farmworld Finn puts it on to help his family, to stop a nuclear meltdown, to protect people. It's a reminder that the crown doesn't corrupt villains. It corrupts heroes. It takes the people who care the most and turns that caring into obsession, into delusion, into isolation. It's haunting, because we know this isn't Finn's fault. He didn't know. He couldn't have known. He was trying to help. But magic, especially Adventure Time's kind of magic, doesn't work like that. And so this quiet, frozen branch of the multiverse, born from one well-meaning wish, begins to crack. Its once untouched timeline starts echoing with the same kinds of tragedy that shaped the original world. The Lich is gone, but something just as dangerous has taken root. And that's one of the quiet truths about alternate universes in Adventure Time. You can't wish away hardship. You can't create a world where pain simply doesn't exist, because pain finds new paths. Darkness grows in different shapes, but you can try again. You can choose, even in Farmworld, even for Finn. So, there he is, Farmworld Finn. This quiet version of our hero slowly losing himself to the weight of something far older than his world was ever meant to hold. And yet, what makes this story so deeply Adventure Time is how it refuses to treat him as just another cautionary tale. It doesn't say, "See, he made a mistake, and now he must suffer." No. It leans into something much softer, much sadder, much more human. Because as the crown tightens its grip, we still catch flickers of the real Finn underneath. His voice cracks in strange ways. He still tries to explain himself to his family, to protect them, even when he's confused, even when his own thoughts begin to feel like ice. He's still reaching for the warmth. And isn't that just heartbreaking? This is the same Finn we've always known, just on a different path. He didn't ask for this. He didn't set out to become a version of the Ice King. But that's the thing with echoes. Sometimes they ring in places we never meant them to. And here's where things get even more complicated and even more fascinating. You see, the story of Farmworld doesn't just sit in its own timeline forever. It starts to bleed, starts to echo outward, just like we talked about earlier. After Finn's wish is undone and the original timeline is restored, Farmworld doesn't vanish. That version of the universe continues to exist, split off, floating out there in the cosmic garden of multiverses. A whole world growing further and further away from the original branch, developing its own future, its own scars, its own legends. And in Season 10's crossover, we return. Years have passed in Farmworld. The cold has settled deeper. The cracks in the world are wider. And Farmworld Finn has become something else entirely. He's older now, tougher, harder. And yet you can tell even in his bitterness, even in his isolation, that the boy who once cared about his family, who only wanted to protect them, is still in there. That's one of the things Adventure Time does so well. It never fully gives up on people, even in an alternate timeline, even when they've made awful mistakes, even when they become unrecognizable. Because the soul of a person, their core, doesn't vanish. It just gets buried sometimes, beneath snow, beneath regret, beneath years of choices that slowly stop feeling like choices. So when our original Finn finally comes face to face with his Farmworld self, it's not a fight, not really. It's a mirror, a moment of deep, eerie recognition. Farmworld Finn is everything our Finn could have become, and maybe still might if life twisted a little differently. And that moment, standing in front of himself, literally and emotionally, is one of the quietest, most powerful multiversal scenes in the whole show. Because here's Finn, seeing another version of himself who's older, colder, and carrying so much more pain. And instead of judgment, there's empathy. It's like the show is saying, yes, you could become someone you don't recognize, but that doesn't mean you're broken. That doesn't mean you can't come back. It's a beautiful idea, isn't it? That even if we drift from who we thought we were, there's still a way back. Even if you lose yourself to sadness. Even if the magic of your life turns heavy and bitter. You can still remember, still choose. And that brings us to the soul of this segment, the thing Farmworld teaches us about the multiverse. It's not about perfect versions of ourselves. It's not about escaping flaws or finding the best timeline. It's about understanding. Farmworld doesn't give us a better Finn or a worse Finn. It gives us a different Finn shaped by different pain, different love, different fears. And that difference invites compassion. Because if we can feel for Farmworld Finn, if we can understand him even as he becomes unrecognizable, then maybe we can offer that same gentleness to ourselves too. To the versions of us who've made mistakes. To the versions we've buried. To the versions we're afraid of becoming. That's what the multiverse is really about. Not just imagining other worlds, but embracing the humanity inside each one. And when we return to Farmworld in later appearances, as Jake and Finn attempt to stop the crown from causing more harm, the weight of all this becomes even clearer. Because that version of the crown, it's no longer just an object. It's become a kind of virus, not just magical, but emotional. It infects reality itself with loss, regret, coldness. And in Farmworld, where warmth was already scarce, its influence spreads fast. But even then, the solution isn't destruction. It's compassion. Finn and Jake don't try to erase Farmworld. They don't try to undo it. They try to help, to heal, to restore balance. Because even broken branches are worth tending to. Even frozen timelines can thaw. Even if you don't return to who you once were, you can still grow from there. That's the wisdom Adventure Time offers us again and again. Not that we must become the best version of ourselves, but that we must learn to understand all our versions, even the ones we don't like. Even the ones that hurt. Because maybe, just maybe, if we listen to those forgotten parts of ourselves, we can heal them. Not with magic, not with time travel, but with care, with patience, with truth. And maybe that's what Farmworld is all about. So now we stand in the stillness of Farmworld's later years. A timeline fractured not by war, but by a wish. A world where time has moved forward in silence, cold, uncertain, and yet still full of life. Let's drift for a moment in that silence. Imagine the Farmworld landscape now, snowy plains stretched wide under pale skies. The mountains rise like sleeping giants, jagged and still. The trees are quiet, coated in frost. And somewhere out there, Finn walks alone. Not the Finn we once knew. Not the bright-eyed boy chasing justice. But a man shaped by quiet grief, by burdens passed down rather than chosen. And this is where Farmworld becomes something more than just an alternate branch. It becomes a story about memory. You see, Farmworld Finn remembers things he shouldn't. Dreams, fragments, flickers, not just from his own timeline, but from others. Echoes from the original universe. Faint ripples from that singular moment when Finn made his wish in the time room and reality split. That's the strange poetry of it all. Even though Farmworld should be sealed off, self-contained, it remembers. In Crossover, we learn that Jake and Prismo are working to ensure the crown in Farmworld is contained, locked away, never allowed to infect other timelines. But things never go as planned, and Finn is pulled into that world again, coming face to face with the version of himself who's been through so much more cold than he has. And it's in that meeting between the Finn of Ooh and the Finn of Farmworld that we see something incredible happen. Not a fight, not a battle of ideologies, just recognition. They both pause. They both see it. The same face, the same eyes, different pain, but the same capacity for change. Original Finn doesn't try to erase Farmworld Finn. He doesn't say, "You're wrong," or "You're broken." He just listens, offers help, And in that quiet moment, a timeline that once spun out of control starts to feel like it might settle again. That's what multiverse storytelling can do at its best. It doesn't just show us flashy what-ifs. It teaches us how to be kind to ourselves. Because when you see another version of you, one who's made worse mistakes or faced harder losses, and you still feel compassion, that means something. That means you're healing. That means you understand that your worth was never tied to your perfection. It was tied to your heart. And Farmworld. Finn still has heart. Even buried under ice and years and regret, it's still there. That's why he never becomes fully monstrous. Why he still protects his family, even through warped means. Why he's still somewhere inside a hero. Just a tired one. Let's talk about something else that lingers in this universe, legacy. Farmworld doesn't just ask, what if the Lich never existed? It asks, what do we leave behind when we don't become the person we thought we would? In the main timeline, Finn becomes a legend, a hero of the Candy Kingdom, a defender of a mythic figure. In Farmworld, that same soul just becomes a man. One who fights, one who struggles, one who falters. But he still leaves a mark. In some ways, that's even more powerful. Because the Farmworld timeline reminds us that even without magic or prophecy, our actions still shape the world. Even the quiet ones. Every choice Farmworld Finn made, even under the Crown's influence, impacted his family, his town, the future. It's not always loud, it's not always noble, but it matters. And maybe that's one of the most grounded truths in the multiverse. You don't have to save the world to be important. You just have to care about your world. Even if it's small, even if it's cold, even if it hurts. And now, back to the Ice Crown. In Farmworld, the crown becomes almost mythological. A cursed artifact so dangerous it's treated like radioactive material, locked in vaults, guarded by ancient machines, feared by everyone who's seen what it can do. And yet it's still there, always lurking, always calling. Because the crown doesn't go away when you hide it. It waits, it watches. It remembers the people it touched. This is where the multiverse feels less like a collection of branches and more like a breathing, remembering mind. Not random, not chaotic, but responsive. The moment Finn interacts with the crown, any version of Finn, the universe leans in. It watches. It responds. Because Finn and the crown are cosmically intertwined. That's why the multiverse keeps returning to Farmworld. Because this timeline, quiet as it may be, holds something essential. It holds the question, who am I when no one's watching? Farmworld Finn never had crowds cheering for him. No magical destiny. No epic prophecy. Just his family, a snowy field, and the weight of surviving. And still he chose again and again to protect what mattered to him. Even when he didn't always get it right. Even when the crown whispered. That's real heroism. And that's why this alternate timeline is so beloved. Because it's not a fantasy. It's a mirror. It shows us that even the quietest, simplest versions of ourselves still have value. Still carry weight. Still shape the world. And now, sleepyhead, as we gently reach the final stretch of Farmworld's story, we can start to step back and look at the full shape of this alternate life. A timeline born from a wish tender, tragic, and sincere. One of the most beautiful things about Adventure Time's multiverse is that it doesn't create alternate universes to show off better versions of characters. It's not about idealized versions or cautionary tales. It's about empathy. And Farmworld, in all its icy weight and quiet heartbreak, is one of the most empathetic branches of all, because it reminds us that even when the world strips away our magic, even when we're separated from our destiny, even when we're carrying grief we don't fully understand, we can still be someone good, someone worth saving, someone worth being. It also shows us that grief and heroism can coexist, that strength doesn't always wear armor or swing a sword. Sometimes, strength looks like a boy putting on boots in the snow again and again because his family needs him. Sometimes it looks like someone who keeps trying even when everything is cold and quiet and hard. And maybe that's the version of Finn that feels closest to us. Not the hero with a magic sword, but the one with sore hands, tired eyes, and a heart that won't quit, even when everything else says, give up. Even when the crown slips back onto his head and the madness threatens to drown him. Even then, he remembers who he is. Because here's something subtle, something soft, that Adventure Time never says aloud but gently implies. Every Finn in every timeline still carries the same spark. The spark of kindness, of loyalty, of stubborn, messy, beautiful courage. And even when that spark is buried beneath layers of ice, regret, or alternate history, it still glows. That's what Ooze Finn sees in Farmworld Finn. That's what we see, too. Not a corrupted version of our hero, but a different hero. Still learning, still hurting, still real. And the crown, for all its power, for all its history, doesn't fully erase that spark. It tries. Oh, it tries. But it doesn't succeed. Because in Adventure Time, magic never fully overcomes the human heart. And that brings us to one final thought. One last whisper before we leave the cold hills of this timeline. What if Farmworld Finn had been given the chance to heal? What if someone like Simon had found him before the crown took hold? What if Marceline had reached out through time and recognized that cold stare for what it really was, a scared boy holding onto a broken tool, hoping it would help? We'll never know for sure. But the possibility, the dream of that connection, lives on. And that's the beautiful truth of the multiverse. Even if we never see it, even if the screen fades to black, there's always another version, another chance, another path. In your life, too. Maybe you've had Farmworld days quiet, cold, confusing. Maybe you felt like the version of you that carries too much weight and hears too many echoing regrets. But you're still here, still breathing, still glowing gently beneath it all. And that means your story isn't over. Not in this timeline. Not in any clone. So as we leave Farmworld behind, as the snow falls softly once again, and the crown sleeps quietly in some locked chamber, forgotten but not gone, we carry its lesson with us. That no matter how strange or painful the path, you are still you. And there is still time to heal, to try again, to thaw the frozen parts of your story, gently, kindly, one dream at a time. Now, as we float onward in this multiversal journey, we'll begin to explore other branches, stranger ones, even more surreal. Some full of candy and chaos, others shaped by shadows and stars. But Farmworld will always remain that soft, snow-covered corner of the multiverse, a quiet echo that asks, what kind of person do you become when no one tells you who to be? And the answer is worth listening to, even here, even now. As your eyes drift heavy and the universe stretches quietly beyond the window of your mind. We're not done dreaming yet. Maybe the night has grown quieter now. Maybe the stars are a little softer, or your eyelids a little heavier. That's perfect. Because this next part of our multiversal journey takes us to the cosmic winds between lives, to something older than timelines, and more mysterious than magic. Tonight we're riding the stars themselves, following a trail of light that passes through every version of existence. We're talking about the comet cycle. You might remember the comet, a glowing, otherworldly body that hurtles through space every 1,000 years. In Adventure Time, it's not just a rock or an astronomical event. It's something alive, something meaningful. And in the deepest lore of the show, the comet is a symbol of rebirth, purpose, and transformation. It's not just a plot device, it's a soul, returning again and again, slipping through realities, changing form, learning, falling, rising, and asking one quiet question: why am I here? Let's follow its trail together. The comet has appeared across multiple points in Adventure Time's timeline. But the most important one, the one that cracked open the cosmic truth, comes in the episode The Comet, near the end of the show's original run. Finn sees it first, far in the sky, long before he knows what it really is. Just a glimmer, a streak of light. But slowly, the truth begins to emerge. The comet isn't just passing through. It's calling. And when it finally arrives, everything changes. Because the comet is more than rock and fire. It speaks, not with a voice, but with a presence, a knowing. It tells Finn something no one else ever has. You or me, a long time ago. That's when everything turns upside down. Because now we're no longer talking about timelines. We're talking about reincarnation. The comet is a soul, a traveler, a cosmic being that takes new form each time it passes through a world. And this time, that soul became Finn. Yes, the boy with the blue backpack, the adventurer, the dreamer. He's not just a human, he's the latest form of a comet that's been traveling through the stars for eons. And in that moment, Finn is given a choice. He could return, rejoin the stars, ascend, leave behind everything, all the pain, all the confusion, all the struggle, and become light again. Or he could stay. And of course, Finn stays. He chooses life, imperfection, the warmth of friends, the messy, beautiful chaos of being human. It's one of the most profound moments in the series, because it doesn't treat cosmic purpose as the highest form of existence. It treats being present, being you, in all your flawed, vulnerable, wondering ways as something just as sacred. And that's where the comet cycle starts to mean something even bigger. Because now, we're not just looking at alternate timelines. We're looking at alternate lifetimes. Each version of Finn, each echo of him across the multiverse, they're not just different branches of a tree. They're different stages of a soul. Think about that for a second. What if the multiverse isn't just made of separate stories, but of souls trying again and again, not to get it right, but to get it honest, to live with a little more love, a little more patience, a little more understanding? What if Farmworld Finn, Prismo, even the Lich, are all caught in some kind of cosmic rhythm, trying, failing, changing, remembering? That's what the comet seems to represent. Not perfection, not power, but growth. And here's where things get even softer and even more magical. When the comet appears in the sky, only certain beings can hear it, feel it, understand its message. And those beings are usually those who are lost. Simon buried under the weight of the crown. Finn unsure of who he really is. Even Orgalorg, the mighty cosmic entity trapped inside Gunther the penguin, is drawn to the comet like a whisper from its original self. That's because the comet doesn't just bring answers. It brings reminders of who you once were and of who you still could be. So, the comet speaks, but it doesn't use words the way we do. Its language is ancient, not written in sound or grammar, but in feeling. And what it speaks most clearly is this: everything you are now was something else before. That message quietly reshapes our understanding of not just Finn, but the entire multiverse. Because if souls travel, if they cycle, then each version of a person we see across timelines, universes, or realities might not just be a branching path. They might be reincarnations, new chapters in a story that spans stars. Let's look closer at Orgalorg for a moment. That ancient world-ending being hidden inside Gunther the penguin, most people see as comic relief. Orgalorg's story is strange and mythic, like a dream made of static and starlight. He was once a powerful entity cast down by higher forces, eventually landing on Earth and being transformed, trapped in the body of a penguin. Small, silly, seemingly harmless. But when the comet draws near, Orgalorg remembers who he truly is. Not a side character, not a pet, but a cosmic predator designed to absorb the comet's energy and ascend again. His story reminds us that what we appear to be is not always what we are. Just like the soul of the comet, sometimes sleeping inside a penguin, sometimes curled inside a boy named Finn, is always more than it seems. And just like Orgalorg seeks the comet for power, Finn is offered something entirely different. A choice. That's the contrast. One being sees the comet as a tool. Another sees it as a home. A memory, a return. But Finn doesn't want to return. Because in that moment, floating in the stars, his body left behind, the universe unfolding around him, he realizes something sacred. This life matters. Not because it's perfect. Not because it's easy. But because it's his. Finn could have become a comet again, gone back to being pure cosmic essence, free of pain, free of confusion. But he chooses Ooh. He chooses the people he loves. The world that breaks his heart and heals it in equal measure. The messiness of being human. And maybe, deep down, that's what every soul is trying to figure out in the multiverse. Is the light inside the stars worth more than the light inside a single lifetime? For Finn, the answer is quiet but clear. Yes. This strange, awkward, painful, beautiful life is worth staying for. And so he returns. Not just to Earth, but to himself. And the comet moves on, its light retreating back into the dark. But the moment leaves a mark. Because from that point on, we're not just watching a boy grow up. We're watching a soul remember. And that changes how we see everything else. We start to realize that Adventure Time's multiverse isn't just about places. It's about journeys. The comet tells us that souls can move between timelines, can take on new forms, can forget and remember and forget again. So, what if Prismo wasn't just a dream made by an old man? What if Prismo used to be a soul, like Finn's, who once chose to become a dream? What if the Lich, terrifying as he is, wasn't always evil? What if, long before he became death incarnate, he too was a spark of something else? A soul that got stuck. This is where the beauty of the comet cycle really begins to shine. Because it doesn't divide people into heroes and villains. It treats everyone like a work in progress. Even ancient beings. Even monsters. Even us. And when you think about the multiverse this way, it becomes less like a tree with sharp branches, and more like a wheel, turning slowly, reaching again and again for understanding, for connection, for peace. The comet in this vision is the reminder that no soul is ever done, that even when we fall, even when we break, there's still another turn. And maybe that's why we're drawn to stories like this before bed. Because somewhere inside, we're all a little like Finn, standing on the edge of the stars, being offered the chance to leave, but choosing to stay, to keep going, to wake up tomorrow, to try again. Not because it's easy, but because it's ours. This world, this version, this moment. The comet reminds us that even when everything feels heavy or strange or uncertain, there's still something beautiful in the trying. And when it appears in the sky again, maybe in another 1,000 years, maybe in the quiet space between dreams, we'll remember not just who we were, but who we want to be. So we drift forward now, comet tail trailing behind us, like a soft whisper of memory, carried by winds no mortal map could trace. There's something delicate in the way the comet cycle teaches us about identity. It doesn't just ask who you are. It asks something even more subtle. What are you becoming? Because if the soul can travel, if it can rise and fall across universes, then who we are right now might just be one version in a much longer journey. Finn, this boy we followed since the start, is no longer just a kid with a sword. He's something older, something deeper, and yet he's still himself, still laughing, still hurting, still stumbling toward understanding, still waking up every morning and choosing life. That's the true beauty of the comet. It doesn't demand ascension. It offers it. And the power is in the refusal. Finn choosing Earth over the stars, choosing presence over perfection. That's a moment that echoes across timelines. Because it means this. You don't need to be cosmic to be meaningful. You don't have to be ancient, glowing, or transcendent. You can just be here, alive, tired, curious, growing, and that's enough. Now let's circle back to a question the comet quietly raises. Are there other souls like Finn's? Other lights that fall through the skies and become people, or creatures, or dreams? The answer, it seems, is yes. Adventure Time never spells out the rules of reincarnation, but it gives us hints, fragments, echoes. Let's look at Shermie and Beth, the characters introduced far in the future, long after Finn and Jake have vanished from the world. Shermie is a cat-like being, small, energetic, brave. Beth is a pup, loyal, goofy kind. Sound familiar? They don't remember being Finn or Jake. But there's something in them, in the rhythm of their bond, and the way they move through the world, that feels unmistakably familiar. As if the comet has fallen again, split, and been born anew, not with memory, but with essence. It's a soft theory, never confirmed, but woven with care, that these characters are not direct descendants or clones, but echoes, spiritual successors, new versions of old souls, trying again in a changed world. And maybe that's what the comet does most quietly of all. It doesn't just travel. It plants seeds, seeds that grow into stories. And those stories, they don't always know where they come from. They bloom without a clear past. But if you listen, you can hear the echoes. Finn's kindness, Jake's loyalty, Marceline's aching soul, Simon's sacrifice. These aren't traits that vanish. They reappear. In new bodies, new forms, new timelines, Because the comet cycle isn't about returning to the beginning. It's about continuing the story in new ways. And that, dear dreamer, is why the multiverse feels so endlessly alive. Not because it's full of answers, but because it's full of possibilities. Every life, every path, every version of a character is another chapter in a story the cosmos has been telling for so long it forgot how it started. But the soul remembers. It remembers the feeling of love, the sting of loss, the thrill of purpose, the hunger for truth. And so it comes back, over and over again, through comets, through wishes, through dreams, even through you. Because if there's one final message in the comet cycle, it's this. You, yes, you, lying there in the hush of the night, are part of it too. You've been other things, other people, other shapes, and the stardust that lingers in your lungs has seen more than you can remember. But you're not here to remember everything. You're here to feel, to experience this life, this exact one, as deeply as you can, with all its mess, all its confusion, all its quiet magic. That's the comet's gift. Not escape, not perfection, but presence. The chance to live, right here, right now, with meaning that doesn't need to be explained. So now, as we coast along the tail of the comet, one last time, let's return to that gentle idea that the multiverse, vast, chaotic, infinite, is not just a place of infinite versions, but a place of infinite becomings. And at the heart of that becoming is the soul, shifting, stretching, learning. The comet doesn't just crash through universes. It weaves them together. By carrying the spark of self, the indescribable you-ness across timelines, lifetimes, and realities, the comet becomes a kind of thread, a luminous line connecting not just stories, but growth. And for those who are especially sensitive, like Finn, or Shermie, or Simon, the comet leaves behind feelings, a strange déjà vu, a pull towards something bigger, a sense that, even in the smallest moment, something ancient is unfolding. Isn't that a beautiful idea? That the ache you sometimes feel in your chest when you look up at the stars might be a memory from before. A whisper of another life, a version of you that chose differently, and now watches gently from far away. Maybe that's what the comet truly offers, not a door to escape this world, but a reminder to treasure it. Because when the cosmic returns again and again to become something mortal, it tells us a secret. This life, this flawed, messy, ordinary life, is sacred. Finn's choice to stay wasn't a rejection of the stars. It was a celebration of the earth. He saw the vastness of everything, the full, infinite scope of who he was and could be, and still said, I want to wake up next to my friends. I want to make toast. I want to cry and laugh and mess up and try again. And the comet respected that. It moved on. Because that's the final quiet truth. The comet doesn't judge. It offers. It lets souls come and go. It lets beings rise or return. It doesn't punish or reward. It simply shines. And when it's done, it disappears into the darkness. But not without leaving something behind. A glow, a memory, a pull. And maybe that's why, in Adventure Time, we see so many characters who don't quite remember their pasts, but feel them. Simon, who feels the ache of loss long before he understands who Betty really was. Jake, who dreams of his past lives as a shapeshifter from shapeless blob to violent warrior to peaceful pup. Even Golb, the being of chaos, seems somehow incomplete, not evil by design, but confused. as if even chaos itself once had a story, a form, a self. What if every soul, even the darkest, is just part of this cycle? Trying, failing, transforming. The comet doesn't sort souls into good or bad. It just gives them another chance. That's what makes the cycle so comforting, especially when we're drifting off to sleep. Because the next time you feel like you failed, or that you've lost your way, or that you're not who you used to be, remember this. The soul doesn't move in a straight line. It spirals, like a comet. It returns again and again, not to erase who it was, but to build on it, to soften, to deepen, to shine a little warmer each time. And so, as we let go of the comet now, as its light fades beyond the edges of our mind's sky, we carry its message with us. You are not alone in this universe. There are versions of you, across timelines, across stars, across lifetimes, and they are rooting for you. Even the ones that made mistakes, even the ones that hurt others, even the ones that never got it right. Because they know what the comet knows. You're still becoming. You are not finished. You are not broken. You are just in motion. And as you drift into dreams tonight, remember that motion doesn't need to be fast. It doesn't need to be perfect. It only needs to be yours. You are the comet now, falling through this life, glowing gently, changing everything you pass. And someday, when your light arcs across someone else's sky, they might look up and feel just a little less alone, because they'll recognize that glow, and they'll remember what it means, that no matter where we are or who we've been, the story still goes on. Still wrapped up warm? Because this next chapter in our dreamy, multiversal tale takes a darker turn, not to frighten, but to understand, to gently explore the shadows cast by stars. Tonight, we're talking about the Lich, the oldest evil, the great ender, a voice like cracking bone and falling ash, but also a being with strange echoes across the timelines. And the question that hangs over it all like a low green fog, does evil transcend universes? Let's settle into the quiet and begin. In the main timeline of Adventure Time, the Lich is fear given form. Born from the aftermath of the Mushroom War, that catastrophic end of humanity, he didn't crawl out of the wreckage. He was the wreckage, the spirit of annihilation itself, a being without mercy, without hunger, without empathy. He doesn't want to conquer. He wants to erase. He whispers promises of silence, of the end of all things. Not because he hates life, but because he sees it as a mistake. The Lich isn't chaotic like Golby. He isn't misguided like Orgalorg. He's precise, sharp, focused. And yet, even he can't escape the multiverse. Because as we peer into alternate timelines, we begin to notice something strange. The Lich is still there, even when things change, even when new stories form, even when the rules are rewritten. Like a stubborn root growing under the surface of 1,000 different worlds, the Lich returns. Let's start with Farmworld, a timeline that, as we explored earlier, was never meant to be. It was created by a wish, a single moment in the time room that splintered reality. In that world, the Lich was never born from the Mushroom War, but he still arrives. He finds his way back through a crack, a weak spot, because even in a world where he was never meant to exist, he still does. It's chilling and strangely poetic, as if the Lich is not tied to a single timeline, but to the fabric of the multiverse itself. a force that waits in the background, always searching for the right moment to crawl through. He isn't bound by logic or sequence. He isn't even bound by birth. He's an idea, a sickness of time, a decay that seeps into stories not because he belongs there, but because he remembers. And in Farmworld, once he finds a way in, he latches onto Finn. That's right. Not as an enemy, but as a host. Farmworld Finn becomes a vessel for the Lich, his mind infected, his body twisted, his soul nearly erased. And here, in this grim arc, we're forced to ask something deeper. Can evil become so fundamental that even alternate versions of you are vulnerable? Even when your timeline is different, even when your choices were better? Can something ancient and wrong still reach you? The Lich seems to say yes, but Adventure Time doesn't let that be the final answer. Because in that same Farmworld arc, in the depths of the infection, we also see a flicker of resistance. Finn's spirit, buried deep under the Lich's control, fights back. He doesn't win by brute force. He wins through connection, through the echo of love, through the memory of his family, through the pull of who he truly is. The resistance doesn't erase the Lich, but it weakens him, reveals the cracks in his form, suggests that maybe, just maybe, the Lich is not as eternal as he believes. Because even if evil can seep across timelines, so can hope, so can choice, so can the soul. Let's follow that thread a little further. Because the Lich doesn't only appear in Farmworld. He shows up in other corners of the multiverse too, and not always in the ways we expect. Take Crossover, for example. An episode where Finn and Jake slip into an alternate timeline, one twisted by the Lich's influence. In this universe, the Lich has won. Ooh is a wasteland. The characters we once loved are hollowed out lifeless, grim echoes of their true selves. And the Lich? He doesn't gloat. He doesn't brag. He simply exists. It's the absence of life he craves, and here, in this branch of the multiverse, he has it. Total stillness. No music. No laughter. Just silence and decay. It's disturbing, but illuminating. Because in that universe, there's no longer any battle. No more resistance. And strangely, no more purpose for the Lich either. He becomes almost aimless. Like a dog that's caught the car it's been chasing. This version of the Lich, one who has already succeeded, reminds us of something quietly powerful. Evil without opposition is empty. His entire identity is tied to ending things. But once everything is ended, he loses meaning. That's why, across timelines, the Lich is always trying to break through, trying to infect, trying to erase. Because in the strange logic of the multiverse, his purpose is to persist, to test the soul's resistance, to ask the question again and again, will you give in this time? And yet, he never wins for long. Even in timelines where he gains the upper hand, the multiverse responds. Through heroes, through sacrifice, through unexpected kindness. Sometimes it's magic. Other times it's the love of a family, or the courage of a child, or the memory of something beautiful just barely held onto. In one of the most poetic arcs of Adventure Time, the Lich is defeated not by battle, but by transformation. Let's talk about that version for a moment. When the Lich is pulled into a magical pool in a moment that should have destroyed him, something unexpected happens. He's reborn, not as a monster, not as a god, but as a baby, sweet pea, a child with green eyes and a quiet soul. the shell of the Lich still faintly echoing inside him. But the essence is innocent. And this version of the Lich, he doesn't destroy. He plays. He wonders. He learns. Because he was given a different path. Not erased. Not punished. Just started over. And that tells us something even deeper than before. Maybe even evil can change. Not through violence. Not through argument. But through rebirth. Through gentle hands. Through the patient work of love. Sweet Pea isn't a weapon to fight the Lich. He is the Lich, or at least what the Lich might have become, if he'd been met with care instead of chaos. It's one of Adventure Time's most quietly radical ideas. That darkness is not fixed. That even the oldest evil might still hold a fragment of light buried deep. And that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is believe that something broken can be mended. Even if it takes 1,000 years. Even if it has to happen in another timeline. Even if it means becoming something entirely new. So let's go even deeper now. Into the strange source behind the Lich's essence. Because if you peer closely enough, you'll find the shadow of something even older than him. A presence that's rarely seen but always felt humming just beneath the edges of fear and silence. That presence is Golb. Now, Golb isn't evil in the way the Lich is. Golb is chaos, raw, ancient, unformed. Where the Lich has a purpose to end life, Golb has no plan at all. He exists outside meaning. He doesn't want to destroy because he hates. He simply is, and in his wake, order dissolves. What's fascinating is how closely the Lich seems tied to Golb, and yet different. Some fans believe the Lich is a servant of Golb. Others think he might be a splinter, a byproduct like a crack that formed in the universe after Golb brushed too close. But here's the dreamy idea we might drift into tonight. What if the Lich is Golb's translation? What if in order for Golb's chaos to take root in mortal timelines, it had to take shape? And that shape was the Lich. Not chaos, but intentional destruction. Not just unraveling, but the desire to end meaning itself. That would explain why the Lich is so precise. Why he doesn't just destroy at random. He targets things that are alive, that are structured, that care. Because those are the things Golb can't reach on his own. Not directly. But the Lich can. He infects forests. He poisons wells. He corrupts minds. Slowly, like rot. Patiently, like time. And yet, he is never complete. Never fully victorious. Because for all his power, he lacks something Golb also lacks. Connection. The Lich doesn't form bonds. He doesn't create. He doesn't remember love or family or kindness. And that, ultimately, is his weakness. Because the multiverse, vast and strange and surreal as it is woven with threads of connection. Finn and Jake. Simon and Betty. Bubblegum and Marceline. Even Prismo and his old man. Across timelines, it's not destruction that echoes the longest, it's care. And the Lich cannot hold it. He cannot understand it. And so, again and again, he's undone by it. Whether it's a tear from a boy remembering his brother, or a child like Sweet Pea, who chooses peace over rage. The Lich's undoing is always the same. He's not loved. Not because no one can, but because he refuses to be. And here's the softest, most secret part of all. That may be the Lich's deepest tragedy. Because in some far-off multiverse, in some version of time that flickered once and vanished, maybe there was a being like him, once whole, a soul that fractured, that drifted. I forgot what it was, and became this. Evil as we see it in Adventure Time isn't always born sometimes, it's twisted. Sometimes, it's what happens when something is left too long in the dark. And if that's true, then maybe the Lich's story isn't over. Maybe Sweet Pea is more than a strange miracle. Maybe he's a testament. That even the worst echoes of the multiverse can soften when met with gentle hands. That even the oldest monsters will still carry a seed of something else. And if the multiverse is filled with infinite timelines, infinite becomings, infinite second chances, then somewhere, someday, the Lich might not be a villain. He might be someone trying to remember. So now we've reached the edge of this dark path. A road made not of footsteps, but of fading voices. A place where endings echo, and the stars themselves seem to hold their breath. This is where the Lich lingers, always watching from the threshold of every timeline. Waiting, whispering, wondering. But even as we look into his hollow eyes, we find something unexpected. Not just dread, but emptiness. Because that's what the Lich is in his truest form. Not evil as a burning flame, but evil as a cold vacuum, the opposite of connection. The void left when everything else is gone. And yet, even that emptiness is not absolute. Because as we've seen in Sweet Pea and Farmworld, in the countless near misses and not quites across the multiverse, the Lich can be stopped. Not by swords, not by spells, but by the quiet resistance of the soul. Finn's soul, Jake's laughter, Simon's sacrifice, Betty's love. Over and over again, the multiverse sends out echoes of hope. Gentle reminders that no matter how far evil reaches, it never fully wins. Because the Lich represents the end. But the multiverse keeps going. And here's something tender to think about as your mind drifts into stillness tonight. What if the reason the Lich exists in so many timelines is because he's not a separate force, but a reflection? A manifestation of what happens when love is forgotten. When connection is severed. When stories are left unfinished. In this way, he's not just a monster from outside the timeline. He's a cautionary tale. A cosmic echo of what could happen to any being if they stopped believing in others, or in themselves. But Adventure Time doesn't let that be the final word. Instead, it gives us Sweet Pea, a boy who doesn't even understand the darkness inside him, but who chooses light anyway. He plays, he smiles, he asks questions. He's afraid sometimes, and that fear makes him kind. And that's what makes him stronger than the Lich ever was. Because love is not loud. It doesn't demand. It invites. And in every timeline where the Lich shows up, no matter how powerful he seems, that gentle invitation is never fully extinguished. Even in the worst-case universes. There's still a crack in the door, a hand held out, a tear not yet shed, a lullaby still humming in the background. So maybe the real question isn't, does evil transcend timelines? Maybe it's something softer, something like, can hope follow us wherever we go? And the answer, whispered across the stars, across dreams, across everything the Lich tried to end, is yes. Because the multiverse is not just infinite in space. It's infinite in grace. There's always another version. Always another chance. Always another soul ready to try again, even if it was once something dark, something broken, something feared. And tonight, as you drift into your own little universe of dreams, remember this. You too have faced shadows. You too have whispered, "Not today," to things that tried to pull you under. And like Finn, like Sweet Pea, like all the quiet heroes of Ooh, you chose to keep going. That's not weakness. That's not luck. That's your light. And no matter how vast the multiverse may be, no matter how many liches it holds, that light always matters. So rest now, traveler of stars. The shadows are soft here, and your soul is safe. And let's float a little higher now. We've wandered through timelines, danced with comets, and even stared into the hollow eyes of the Lich. But tonight, we aim for the cosmic summit. Because if there are infinite universes and infinite versions of us, who built the canvas they all exist on? Who maintains the rules, if rules even exist? Who watches the watchers? Well, in Adventure Time, the answers don't come in tidy exposition or glowing scrolls. They come in riddles, in dreams, in strange beings who seem too vast to fully understand and too gentle to fear. Tonight we're meeting the cosmic entities, the architects of reality, the ones who don't just live in the multiverse, they sculpt it. Let's start with a fan favorite, Prismo. Yes, we met him earlier, the Wishmaster, the dream of an old man curled up in a time room with a smile that carries 1,000 years of stories. But here, let's look at him again, through a different lens, not just as a character, but as a structural force. You see, Prismo isn't just granting wishes for fun. He's keeping order. His time room sits at the center of the multiverse, a control panel of sorts, humming quietly in its own pocket of stability. He doesn't act recklessly. He's careful, precise, almost parental, because he understands something many others don't, that the multiverse is fragile. And while wishes can be beautiful, they can also break things. That's why Prismo is so selective, why he insists on balance, why he doesn't fight battles directly, but nudges things into place gently, thoughtfully, from the edge of reality. He isn't a god in the traditional sense. He's more like a humble gardener, tending to the garden of existence with tea in one hand and a soft chuckle in the other. But Prismo isn't alone up there. Now let's drift now to another great force, the cosmic owl, a creature of dreams, vast, feathered, glowing. He lives not in the stars, but in the dreamscape, a realm between realities where fate takes shape. When the cosmic owl appears in your dreams, it's not just a hallucination. It's a message, a fork in the road, an omen with weight. And that's what makes him so strange and special. Because unlike the Lich or Orgalorg who impose their will through power, the cosmic owl doesn't act. He simply shows you what might come. He's the custodian of destiny. But he won't force your hand. You dream of him when the universe is whispering, "This matters." When you're about to make a choice that will ripple across timelines. He doesn't give answers. He gives awareness. And there's something oddly comforting about that. To know that somewhere out there, there's a being who sees your path, but still believes you should walk it yourself. Together, Prismo and the cosmic owl form a kind of duality. One deals with choice, the other with consequence. And in between them, 1,000 stories unfold. Now that we've floated with Prismo and dreamed alongside the cosmic owl, let's move towards stranger territory, where the lines between the surreal and the sacred blur completely. Next up is a being you might not expect to find in the multiverse's control room. The King of Mars. Yes, that Mars. Red, dusty, and regal. In the Adventure Time cosmos, Mars is more than a planet. It's a place of higher purpose, a seat of judgment, a realm of magic, monarchy, and metaphysical trials. And at the center of it all sits King Abraham Lincoln. Yes, Honest Abe, crowned ruler of the Martian High Court. It's the kind of detail that sounds like a joke until you feel how deeply the show commits to it. Because Lincoln isn't played for laughs. He's wise, kind, stern when needed. A cosmic leader, not by force, but by moral gravity. He oversees souls, weighs decisions. He even passes judgment over death and reincarnation. When Magic Man, once a brilliant scientist named Margles, loses his wife and descends into madness, it's Lincoln who tries to guide him back. And when Magic Man's actions ripple outward into the timelines, it's the King of Mars who steps in not to punish, but to restore balance. There's a sense of sacred order to the Martian court. It doesn't obey Earth's logic or even Prismo's dream rules. It obeys something more ancient, something like cosmic justice. It's as if Mars functions as a moral checkpoint in the multiverse, a place where the universe says, pause, reflect, decide. And that alone tells us something gentle and profound. Even in an endless multiverse, some beings are tasked with helping it stay kind. Now let's pull back even further. Beyond Prismo's control room, beyond Mars' High Court, beyond even the cosmic owl's dream realm, there's Orgolorg, a creature from before time. Older than galaxies, a god of domination hidden inside the soft, fluffy body of Gunter the penguin. Yes, that Gunter. It's one of the most unexpected yet brilliant reveals in the series that Gunter, the waddling nuisance at Ice King's feet, is secretly the reincarnation of a fallen cosmic terror. Orgolorg once sought to consume the power of a passing Catalyst Comet. He failed, was struck down, and reborn on Earth as a penguin. And here's what makes Orgolorg so haunting. He remembers. Deep beneath the honks and waddles, a cosmic intelligence still stirs. And when the comet returns, so does his hunger for power. But once again he fails. Because in this multiverse, domination doesn't last long. Orgolorg's story reminds us that power, no matter how ancient, is never permanent. That even beings born from the chaos before creation can be humbled. And sometimes they're defeated not by warriors or gods, but by friendship, by accidents, by penguins who just want to chill. This duality between the terrifying and the ridiculous is what makes Adventure Time's cosmos so endlessly human. Even the grandest cosmic entities are layered. They're not perfect. They fall, they laugh, they long, and above all, they're part of the same emotional multiverse as us. They dream, they grieve, they hope, and sometimes they choose to protect rather than destroy. So let's pause for a moment. Let the vastness settle in. Because as much as these cosmic entities stretch the limits of our imagination, they also reflect something surprisingly personal. Prismo, with all his power, is lonely. The cosmic owl, who oversees destiny, often appears confused, even distracted, when pulled from his dream realm. And Orgolorg, a fallen being of immense strength, is trapped in a life he never chose. Even Glob, the celestial being whose name echoes like a prayer throughout Ooh. Oh, my Glob isn't untouchable. Glob is real. And at one point sacrifices himself in a quiet, dignified act to prevent catastrophe. That moment Glob's self-destruction isn't shouted from the rooftops. It isn't framed like a grand cinematic moment. It's subtle, somber, almost easy to miss. And that's how Adventure Time handles most of its cosmic truths, not with blinding flashes or godlike monologues, but with grace. Because these cosmic entities, despite their powers, are still part of the story. They're not above it. They feel. They struggle with memory. They mourn. They get things wrong. And maybe that's the deepest secret of all. Even the architects of reality are still learning. That realization that the multiverse isn't run by perfect beings is strangely comforting. It means there's room. Room for error. Room for choice. Room for growth. The same growth we see in Marceline and Simon. In Finn. In Bubblegum. In Jake. It means that even the ones who designed the stage are still trying to figure out how to perform. Let's go back to Prismo for a moment. Because his story is especially tender. He's the dream of a man who sleeps endlessly suspended in space, unmoving, untouched. If that man were ever to wake up, Prismo would vanish. He exists only as long as the dream continues. It's a metaphor so quiet you might miss it on first watch. That dreams like timelines are fragile. That beautiful things can be temporary and still worth everything. Prismo knows his existence is delicate. And yet, he still chooses to help. He still laughs. Still makes pickles. Still bonds with Jake. Still offers wishes, even when they tear at the edges of reality. Because his purpose is not control. It's kindness. And that's what makes him a true cosmic force. Not the power he wields, but the gentleness with which he uses it. That's the thread tying all these entities together. From Mars to the dream realm. From Glob's sacrifice to Orgalork's regret. These beings are not distant, unfeeling titans. They're characters. With desires, with fears, with pasts. They are, in their own way, us. Writ large, stretched across stars. They embody the same themes we find in every sleepy corner of, love, loss, loneliness, hope. They may shape reality, but they are also shaped by it all. And that might be the most beautiful idea of all. That in a universe of infinite possibilities, the ones who matter most are not the ones who shout the loudest or destroy the most, but the ones who listen, who wait, who show up in quiet moments and choose empathy, even when no one's watching, even when it won't be remembered, even when it might cost them everything. So now we float at the very edge of it all. We've met the wish-granting dream who lives in a time bubble. We've visited the owl who weaves fate into feathers. We've stood in the Martian court with a quiet, immortal Abraham Lincoln. And we've seen how even monsters like Orgalorg are still haunted by the stars. But as the stardust settles and your eyes grow heavier, let's ask one last question. Why do they exist at all? Why does Adventure Time fill its skies with cosmic beings? Is it just to make the world feel big? To raise the stakes? To give Finn and Jake something enormous to push against? Maybe. But maybe it's more than that. Maybe these cosmic entities are there to remind us that everything is connected. That the smallest wish whispered from a child's lips echoes all the way up into Prismo's time room. That a single decision to stay kind, to help a friend, to forgive can ripple across every timeline. Maybe the multiverse doesn't run on logic or power, but on intention. And maybe that's why the architects of reality look the way they do. Not polished. Not perfect. But flawed, strange, gentle. They reflect back the truth that this universe, or any universe, isn't run by cold machinery. It's made of stories. Stories told by the people who live in them. Stories remembered by stars. Stories guarded by owls and shaped by dreams. Even Golb, who represents pure chaos, exists within this tapestry, not to destroy it fully, but to challenge it. To test whether our connections can hold. And so far, they have. Because whether it's Betty sacrificing everything to save Simon, or Sweet Pea rejecting the darkness inside him, or Jake choosing to stay by Finn's side, lifetime after lifetime, the cosmic forces don't always intervene. They watch, and sometimes they smile, because they see that the real architects of reality aren't always floating in the stars. Sometimes they're right here, on the ground, with dirt under their nails, and a stubborn belief that things can get better. Finn doesn't know he's reshaping the multiverse every time he makes a choice. He's just trying to do the right thing. But that's exactly what Adventure Time shows us, again and again. That the most powerful forces in existence aren't always the ones with glowing eyes or ancient crowns. Sometimes the real power is a boy with a sword and a big heart, a dog who believes in loyalty, a girl who loves too much, a vampire who remembers too deeply, and maybe you too. Maybe your story, quiet as it may feel, is part of the same great weave. Maybe your choices, your dreams, your kindness, ripple outward, just like theirs. You don't have to be a cosmic owl to matter. You don't have to sit on Mars to shape the sky. You just have to care. And that's the final message of these cosmic beings, that the universe is vast. But it listens. That reality is wide. But it bends gently toward meaning. That the stars are ancient. But they notice you. So tonight, as your thoughts drift into the dark velvet of sleep, remember, you are part of something immense. Not because of what you control, but because of what you feel, what you choose, what you love. And somewhere, maybe in a dream, maybe in a distant realm of space and story, Prismo's watching. The cosmic owl is stirring, and the multiverse is waiting for your next move. You've made it. We've drifted through Prismo's time room, slipped between timelines, met cosmic owls and forgotten gods. And now, we've arrived at the final question. The one that's quietly echoed in every episode, every theory, every glimmering fork in the path. Is there one true timeline? Or are we all just echoes, branching, twisting, splintering in a multiverse with no center? Let's breathe into that for a moment. Because on the surface, Adventure Time seems to say no. There's not just one path. There's 1,000, 1,000,000. Each as real, as meaningful, and as alive as the next. We've seen Farmworld Finn live a life shaped by a single wish. We've seen universes where the Lich won, where Jake is a blue stretchy god, where BMO is a sheriff in space, where Simon never loses Betty, or maybe where Betty never loses herself. The timelines dance like fireflies, none more true than the other. And yet, there's still a feeling deep and quiet that some things hold more weight, that some moments matter more, that maybe there is a center, not a perfect one, not a dominant one, but a thread that runs deeper than the rest. Let's think about Finn and Jake, our original duo, the thread we return to again and again, no matter how wild the timelines get. They don't remember all their past lives. They don't know they exist in countless versions. But something inside them does. Something pulls them toward the same choices, the same love, the same courage, even when their world shifts around them. They may wear different faces, hold different swords, love in different ways, but they're still them. And maybe that's what we're really asking when we wonder about a true timeline. Not which one happened, but which one keeps happening. Because repetition is resonance. If a bond endures through lifetimes, if a soul chooses kindness in every version, if a story keeps unfolding in new forms but with the same heartbeat, then maybe that is what makes a timeline feel real. Not that it's fixed, but that it's chosen over and over again by the characters, by the universe, by us, the dreamers watching in the dark. So let's follow that thread and see where it pulls us. Because if a true timeline isn't about fact or sequence or control, maybe it's about feeling. Think back to all the versions of Finn we've met. Not just Farmworld Finn, but the Finn from the Pillow World. The one who lives an entire quiet lifetime in a dreamlike village, gets old, has kids, dies peacefully in his sleep. None of it happens in the main timeline. None of it is remembered. And yet, when Finn wakes up back in his own body, in his own bed, he's changed, wiser, softer, a little more understanding of how short and beautiful life can be. And that tells us something gentle but profound. Even if timelines branch, even if events are erased, the soul remembers, not in words, not in facts, but in feeling. That's what links timelines together. That's what gives them weight. It's not about which events are correct. It's about what echoes, what lingers. And here's where things get beautifully strange. Because there's a theory soft as starlight that the main timeline isn't one that exists in isolation, but one that holds the others. That maybe the multiverse isn't a tree with one true trunk and 1,000 offshoots, but a braid, interwoven, interconnected. And at the heart of that braid is something not rigid, but resonant, a kind of emotional gravity, where the strongest choices, the kindest, bravest, most selfless acts create ripples that guide other timelines toward them. That's why we keep returning to Finn and Jake, why we always orbit back to that treehouse, to the boy and his dog, to the laughter, the loyalty, the quiet love. Because those aren't just plot points. They're constants. Like stars you can still see even when the sky changes. In this way, Adventure Time doesn't pick a true timeline. It doesn't say, this is the real one and the rest are just dreams. Instead it asks, what if they're all real? And what if the truth isn't found in choosing just one, but in listening to what they all share? The friendships, the regrets, the dreams, the choices that bloom even when no one is watching. Because the multiverse isn't a puzzle to solve. It's a symphony. And the melody that keeps returning, soft, steady, simple, is the one that matters most. That's the one we hum when we're alone. The one we follow when we're lost. The one that says, be kind, be brave, and love even if it ends. Let's follow that melody now, deeper into the weave of timelines. Because even as the paths twist and split, one feeling keeps shining through, belonging, not to a place or even a particular moment, but to each other. No matter the timeline, no matter the reality, we see the same thing play out again and again. Finn searching for meaning, Jake finding joy in the moment, Marceline clinging to memories, Simon and Betty always reaching across the impossible. Even when they don't remember, their souls do. That's why in Together Again, the episode that shows Finn and Jake reuniting after death, it doesn't matter what timeline they came from. It doesn't matter if the world around them has changed. They find each other, because that's what souls do, across lifetimes, across universes, across every story ever told. They find the ones who make them whole. And when Jake says, let's just keep adventuring until we don't feel like it anymore, well, that's not just a goodbye. That's a kind of cosmic truth. That the true timeline isn't a straight road. It's a feeling. It's the part of the story where you feel seen, safe, known. Like you're where you're meant to be, even if the scenery keeps changing. So maybe the question, is there one true timeline, isn't meant to be answered with charts or clocks. Maybe it's meant to be answered with something softer. Like, is there a place where your heart feels at home? For Finn, that place is often by Jake's side regardless of the world around them. For Simon, it's anywhere Betty is, even when she becomes something else entirely. For BMO, it might just be wherever someone needs a song. And for you? Well, only you know that answer. But Adventure Time gently suggests that you will find it. That across the vastness of space, time, and possibility, there is always a thread pulling you home. It may look different each time. A city, a person, a memory, a feeling you can't quite explain but recognize when you feel it. And when you do, you'll know. Not because it makes sense, but because it matters. That's what truth is in a multiverse like this one. Not something absolute, but something felt. Not a timeline carved in stone, but a story whispered across dreams. So now, sleepy traveler, we've come to the final breath of our journey. We've walked through time loops, stared into dream owls, listened to the silent hearts of comets and gods. And at the end of it all, we're left not with a clear map, but with something much more precious. A feeling, a knowing, a quiet answer, stitched gently into the chaos. Because maybe Adventure Time was never trying to define the right timeline. Maybe it was showing us that truth can be many things. Truth can be a boy who always saves the day, even when he's scared. It can be a vampire who sings about love and memory under the stars. It can be a dog who jokes through pain, but never lets go of his brother's hand. And these are not facts. They are constants. And in a world where everything can change, where even your name, your shape, your timeline might shift, it's those emotional constants that become your compass. Love, loyalty, forgiveness, the courage to try again. Those are your North Stars. And if the multiverse is infinite, then there are infinite versions of you carrying those same stars in their heart. Maybe some of them are lost. Maybe some are tired. Maybe some haven't found their Jake yet. But somewhere out there in some timeline, in some dream, there's a version of you who's exactly where they need to be. And that version? They're not separate from you. They're you, just waiting to be remembered. So no, maybe there isn't one true timeline. Maybe that's not the right question at all. Maybe the question is, what kind of timeline do you want to live in? One where you chase what matters. Where you forgive when it's hard. Where you dance a little, even when the world feels heavy. Where you trust that even if things fall apart, the story isn't over. Because here's the truth. Soft asleep. There's no one path. But there is one feeling. And when you find it, that little warmth in your chest, that spark of recognition, and you'll know you're home. Not because someone told you it was the right version of events, but because it's where your heart finally, quietly, rests. So now, as your eyes close and your breath slows, know this. You are part of the multiverse, a glowing thread in an endless, beautiful weave. And your story, this one, the one you're living right now, it matters, even if no one remembers it. Even if it's just a quiet night, a soft voice, a moment under the covers. It's real, and it's yours. And somewhere out there, Prismo's probably smiling. Because this version of you is doing just fine. And that, dear sleepyheads, is the end of our journey tonight. From Prismo's time room to the far edges of reality. From comets to candy, owls to echoes. We've wandered through the secrets of the multiverse and gently unpacked the stories hidden between timelines. Thank you for letting me keep you company. Whether you're still awake or drifting somewhere between dreams and stars, I hope you feel a little more at peace, a little more connected, and a little more like you across every version that's ever been. If you're still here, leave an eye in the comments. I love seeing who made it to the very end. Don't forget to like, share, or subscribe if you enjoyed our time together tonight. It helps the channel grow and keeps this sleepy little corner glowing. And until next time, close your eyes, breathe deep, and remember, every version of you is loved. And this timeline, the one where you're listening now, is exactly where you're meant to be. Good night, and sweet dreams, traveler.